Welcome to the Drew Yari Show.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, what's up?
No, I'm not talking to you.
Sounds like you're having a busy day.
I mean, you can tell someone 100 times you're doing a show at 2 o'clock and it doesn't get through.
That sounds about right. What are you up to?
About 2:50.
Interesting. No, I mean, like, how's your day going?
This is my day. I woke up around 11:30. I didn't really sleep very well, so I whenever I have insomnia, I go into the other room and I turn on YouTube and I watch MLW Fusion and NWA Power, and then no problem going to sleep then. Yeah. I woke up, I had a couple cups of coffee, I listened to Frank and Gus, I listened to a couple of regular podcasts. I started Soup, but then saw it was 2.5 hours, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'll save that. And that's it. I've been fucking around on Twitter, just waiting for this lovely time to roll around so that we can entertain the people and maybe get some interaction and have some, maybe even a few people who are alone on Christmas Eve can join us and, not be alone.
Right. We'll fill that gap that everyone's missing at Christmas.
Spread a little Christmas doom.
And Jeff will fill in that gap, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Damn right I will.
That's why they call him Evil Dose.
That's right. 2 times. Double up. Boom. Boom.
That's the whitest way I've ever heard that song.
Well, I am the whitest person.
Baby got back, and it ain't no lie.
That's right. Listen, my anaconda don't want none unless you got buns on.
Goddamn right. Well, I guess we should already start. The chat room's starting to fill up a little bit. Let's see. RJ's in the chat room. What's up, RJ? Brother. Let's see. Diamond Dirk. What's up? Lightning 116. Maurice Bear. CM Goof. What's good, guys?
Wow. You know everybody.
I mean, I don't know everybody. I just know most people.
Very popular.
I wouldn't call myself popular.
Is it because you're so adorable?
I don't think I'm popular, personally.
Huh. Well, I know I'm not, so I mean, it's all by comparison.
I don't know. I mean, I think you're pretty well off.
Oh, thank you. I think I'm better known than better liked.
I mean, I'd rather be better known. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do with that kind of popularity.
Listen, when you're trying to take over the world through force, you don't exactly have to make friends along the way.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're already recording. We're just gonna start already. Hey guys, Merry Happy Christmas Eve. There's a lot of noise going on Jeff's. I don't know what that is, but welcome to the show. Welcome to this part dose of this crossover with Garden of Doom and my show, Drew Yari Show, Garden of Drew.
The Garden of Droom.
Droom. But whatever you want to call it, I don't care. I'm not your dad. But welcome to the show. Happy Merry Christmas Eve. I see people are here spending Christmas Eve with us. Why you're doing that?
Wait, you're not my father?
Whose father?
Mine.
No, I'm not your father.
Yeah. Oh.
That
changes everything.
We did a DNA test. I'm not your father.
Mm-hmm.
It's Kevin Castle's your father.
You know, it should have been my first clue, you being about 23 years younger than me.
Or maybe I'm a time traveler. You don't know.
You're right. I don't know. You're back in play.
Right. So the hunt is still on. But how's everybody doing today? How's everybody's Christmas Eve so far?
Where are they going to answer?
So Goof is saying his Christmas was canceled because of frigid temperatures. Yeah, Chicago.
Aww.
If you're out in the east, that sounds pretty bad. Oy. How's the weather doing where you're at, Jeff?
Me? It's cold as shit. But I don't leave the condo unless I have to organize my forces for violence. So, fine.
Yeah, you're in Baltimore, so that just sounds like another Tuesday.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was like 9 degrees yesterday, and my house is 2/3 Ecuadorian, and they don't, they're not used to this temperature. So they can't get over the temperature being in single digits. I'm like, we're inside, relax.
Right. It's it's nowhere near as cold as say Baltimore or Chicago. I see RJ wants to jump in. Let me get him in real quick, but it's
14 right now, 14 degrees.
In San Antonio, it was below the teens yesterday. And it's going to be cold all weekend, so it's Texas.
Yeah.
Texans can't handle that kind of cold.
No, in fairness, not a lot of people can handle this kind of cold. I mean, we're not really made for this. But I think it's supposed to be like 50 in a week, which is weird. It's not snowing here. We have electricity. There's a lot of people around here that don't have electricity. There's lots of places where there's tons of snow. We're not traveling, so we're not impacted by all the flights being canceled and hotels being overbooked and all that other stuff. So, my hermit lifestyle once again pays off.
Right. And Dirk is saying, unfortunately, Shaheen has no power. Man, that sucks. That sucks, man.
That's so unfortunate. I wish I should stop right now.
Shout out to Shaheen. Hope you're doing all right. RJ is in the voice thingy with us. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
What's up, Brooklyn Savage?
Nothing much. Just taking a day off from being a savage.
You gonna tell us any urban legends from New York today?
No, not today. I'm not going to tell you the story about how I got shot 27 times and lived.
Oh. You just did.
I got to tease you just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Nah, but I just wanted to just throw my head in there and just really just enjoy the show with everybody else and just say hello. Stop by. I'm out with family right now, so just trying to enjoy that. Nice little family time. It's rare nowadays, but just trying to enjoy that.
So, RJ, is that a story of how someone can simultaneously have really good aim and really bad aim at the same time?
Absolutely.
Is it kind of like that one time where you went to that harem full of thick white girls and lived?
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a battlefield out there, ladies and gentlemen. It really is,
That's not called a harem. That's called a trailer park.
I said thick white girls.
I know what you said. I heard thick.
Oh man, that'd be fat. There's a difference between fat and thick, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not really sure that there is, to be honest with you.
Oh no, there is. Trust me, is.
I'm seeing a slippery slope where a lot of things are being called thick.
I know. I'll give you points on that. Like, there are girls that will say, "I'm thick." I'm like, no, you're not.
I see guys attributing thickness to fatness.
Well, no, it's just like, well, no,
if you like a fat girl, if you like fat girls, it's fine. I mean, that's okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. I mean, there's more fat people in the world than hot people. I mean, but let's not try to make everyone objectively sexy when they're just not.
Yeah, but it's just like there is. But again, my point is, there's a difference between thick and fat. So
there was.
No, there is. There still is.
Okay. All right. If you say so.
Like Gigi Dolan's thick. She's not fat.
She's a little buttery, but yeah, I would give you that. I mean, I would say that Nikita Lyons is sort of on the outside spectrum of thick.
She's very much thick. Like I don't know.
Like Hayden Carter is the perfect degree of thickness.
I'm trying to think of who's a good example of fat.
Oh God,
Nia Jax.
Oh yeah, Nia Jax is fat. She's not thick. She's like she's the definition of girls that say I have curves. I'm like, bitch, you don't have curves. You have a road. Stop.
Right. You're a pyramid. I've heard people say Dewdrop is thick. Dewdrop's fat.
She's fat. Like
she might be solid. She might like Tugboat was solid fat, but she's fat. She's not thick.
And I actually think Dewdrop is very pretty, personally to me. But yeah, she's a big girl.
Oh, you know who's a perfect example of a pretty girl who's not thick? She's still attractive, but she's on the fatter side. Willow Nightingale, beautiful woman, great personality, but she's not thick. She's fat.
She's a BBW. That's the best way to put it. So again, there's nothing wrong. Like Jeff says, nothing wrong if you like thick girls or fat girls. It's just, we're just giving our own, I guess, diagnosis of what we think which is which. So
beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. That can be the name.
And by the way, a lot of people are sapiophiles, and it has nothing to do with the person's looks. It has to do with their mind, their personality, common interests. I mean, and that's all good.
There you go. Exactly. That could be the name of today's show. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
It could be, but the show has hardly started, so I wouldn't commit to a title yet.
Well, this is a pre-show. We're trying to get everybody. We're trying
How
to get
about
everybody
argued about top 27 times and lived?
Yes, yeah, so what happened was I walked on Herkimer Street. I turned my head like Ricky Starks, and the next thing you know, pop, 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 pop. And,
I mean, what were you shot with?
I have no idea.
Bird shot?
It just, it pierced my body. Whatever hit me, it pierced my body, and I was able to walk away alive.
Did they Adam pierce your body?
I did not see any bald white men. There was not any white bald men present.
Did you see the Young Bucks doing their gun hands?
No.
Did they point at you and go elite and just super kick you? Did that almost like take you out?
No.
He heard the leg flaps and he took evasive maneuvers.
Do you think I would give those two tweaks any ounce of credit to try to take me out? Like, I wouldn't give those guys any type of credit. Hell, if I was a wrestler, I wouldn't sell for those guys.
What about Arn Anderson?
That's a different story. Arn Anderson gave me a spine buster, and I would sell that bad boy like I literally got shot.
I need to correct something. Diamond Dirk, I did not give a shout out.
Yeah, it was just me. But yeah, Arn, you don't want to fuck with Arn.
Nah, not at all. Like Arn's a guy I can pretty much see myself respecting, like just flat out.
So last year on our prediction show for Hammerlock Hangover, Steve predicted that Arn Anderson would continue to fall off things. And he's right. He fell off the face of the earth mostly. So there you go.
He did. Right after Cody left.
Yeah. So, yeah. Actually, you guys should check out when not to give a cheap plug, but when Hammerlock Hangover's end of year show we recorded Thursday night, Friday morning, and it should drop probably today. We reviewed our predictions last year, and I did pretty damn well. Steve, not so much, but he did okay. But I did. But we also do our end of year awards and our predictions for this coming year. But among the predictions I got right, Fight Forever would not drop in 2022, and Braun Strowman would be a comeback story.
Oh, you hit the nail on both.
Yeah.
Litmadamus.
I also got some wrong. I said Gigi Dolan would enjoy some solo success, so
Maybe she did, just not on camera.
with Nash Carter, lucky bastard.
Lucky bastard. Good Lord, just lucky fool.
But should we start with the should we start with the main topic at hand, Jeff?
Sure, man. I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
All right. So, like the last show, if you guys were here, if you guys listen, I gave Jeff a homework assignment, which Mish was a part of. This time, Jeff was very eager to do another homework assignment. So, what I did for him, the topic was urban legends, and we kind of mixed it up a little bit. So it wasn't just like regular urban legends, like the stuff we already know about. It was kind of stuff on Jeff's end, Washington, Baltimore urban legends, and he asked me to do Texas, which Texas kind of, it doesn't really have that many interesting urban legends. It kind of just has the same as everybody else, like the woman in white, for example, just kind of the same shit that I was already giving him. So Jeff did his homework, I'm assuming. And we're going to start. So, would you happen to have the topics?
Do you want to start with the list that you gave me? I just figured that you would tell me, but I have your list. So, let me just pull it up. Oh, it looks like you sent me Messenger. You want to start. I have my phone on mute when I do shows, so I didn't even know that. The answer is yes, I would like to start.
All right, go ahead.
I am. All right. So, here was your list. You did Skinwalker, Mothman, La Llorona, El Cucuy, Vanishing Cucuy. Well, it pronounced lots of different ways. Vanishing Hitcher, Black-Eyed Children, Wendigo, and Bloody Mary. So why don't you just go in what order, just so in case I have notes or whatever, you can see if you can throw me off. You can test me.
All right, I have my list right here. So let's just start from the top. Let's start with Skinwalker.
Okay. So the Skinwalker is pretty cool, and a lot of people sort of confuse the Skinwalker with the Wendigo, and I mean they're sort of similar, but they're very different. So the Skinwalker is mostly attributed to the Navajo tribe, or we call it Navajo, as I believe they pronounce it themselves as Dene. In any event, so everyone's heard of Skinwalker Ranch, and it's not a coincidence. So that name has its origin because the Navajo were losing the war to the Utes, not the Uses, the Utes, and so they put a curse on this stretch of land, which is sort of near the Four Corners area, which is Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and I think Nevada. And the curse was that there'd be less skinwalkers there, so that the Utes would not travel any further past that. So the Skinwalker Ranch occupies that stretch of land. So that's the reason for the name of it. Skinwalker Ranch is associated with lots of things. Anyway, the Skinwalker itself, it is an act of intent. So generally speaking, a Skinwalker involves a shaman or medicine woman. And not all shamans are medicine people. They're not all medicine men or medicine women, and not all medicine men or women are shamans. But it's sort of like if you were a priest and also a doctor, which is possible, but they're two different skill sets. Anyway, if a shaman or any magician uses intent to transform into a skinwalker, so there's a ritual to it, and it's something that you do on purpose. So there's a few schools of thought. One is that it's sort of like the Norse berserker, that you took basically some hallucinogens, some mind-altering substances, and you just went wild. That's sort of like a science version, a conveniently westernized version of it. The two other schools of thought are that you actually transform into a four-legged animal. And the words in the original Dene translate to something like, they accomplish their goals on all fours, or by any means on all fours. So it literally means a four-legged animal, mostly associated with a coyote, a wolf, a deer, which is sort of where the Wendigo thing comes into play, even though the deer is not exactly part of the traditional Wendigo, and we'll get to that later. So a skinwalker is not exactly a werewolf, but it can be. But the person retains their mentality. They may get more wild. They might have more preternatural or animal instinct, speed, strength, sight, agility. Their senses are heightened, etc. But they still have their intent, and so you're doing it on purpose, for a purpose. The other is that you don't actually transform into the animal itself. You put on the skin pelts, and you sort of take on the qualities of that animal, but it's still intentional, and you can transform back and forth, basically at will. But it's black magic, basically. It's evil intent. So that's what a skinwalker is. Now, there's skinwalkers all throughout the world, usually associated with witches. But in this case, we're talking about a particular type of skinwalker, and again, that's mostly Southwest United States. So it may be relevant to note that the Navajo probably did have some association with the Algonquin long time ago, and moved south from sort of northwestern Canada into the American Southwest. It's now the American Southwest, or the U.S. Southwest anyway, about 700 or 800 years ago.
Huh. That's interesting. Interesting facts. Yeah, the Skinwalker. I'm trying to remember where else I might have heard it from. I think it might be a Texas thing, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was on an episode of Supernatural, and it was in other things. I think it was on like Ghost Adventures, or one of those like random ass travel channel shows. But next topic is Mothman, which there was a movie called Mothman. Was it the Mothman Conspiracies or Mothman? Or was it just called Mothman?
Prophecies.
Mothman Prophecies. There you go. Which that was a good movie. It was a kind of a freaky movie. But Jeff, what was your research about the Mothman?
All right. So the Mothman's pretty cool. The Mothman oftentimes gets sort of conflated with the Slender Man and the Smiley Man, and there's a lot of relationships between the two, especially with what's the guy's name? It's like Enoch Cole or Enoch Cold, the name. It's not exactly clear whether he's the Mothman or the Smiley Man. But the Mothman, this actually originates from a place called Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where at some point in the mid-'60s, this village was apparently, or town was terrorized by the Mothman. So the way I picture the Mothman is sort of like, the gray gargoyle from the superhero comics? Right. It's sort of like the gray gargoyle with almost like owl-like features, big eyes that reflect in the light, orangish red. Some people say that they're always red, wide-eyed, wings, and because of that sort of owlish face appearance with the wings, they call it the Mothman, but gray. The legs are supposed to be, very muscular, which is where I get the sort of gray gargoyle part, but nothing about the upper body being unusual. And the Mothman apparently is often associated with extraterrestrial, that it may be involved in abductions, communications. It's sort of weird, but it's sort of like the emissary, but the malevolent emissary in most cases of what might be a UFO, maybe intradimensional, supernatural, but it is mostly appear in a tunnel or in the distance, and the name Mothman got memorialized. Now there was that story with, I forgot the guy's name, but his car got stopped, and the Mothman came up to him and introduced himself as, again, I'm probably getting the name wrong, but it's like Enoch Cole, something like that. Mm-hmm. And apparently they had an ongoing relationship, in that, not like they dated, but like they see each other from time to time, and they bring him back and forth to the mothership, or wherever the Mothman was from, and there was more benevolent than malevolent, or at least neutral. But that's the Mothman. But so since then, there's been sort of stories from around the country and even the world where the Mothman has repeated itself. I like to think that it's a So it's sort of like the Falcon suit, like sort of the combination between the Falcon and Star-Lord suit. Mm-hmm. And it is it's like a one-man, uniform suit that comes down from an extraterrestrial vehicle and, is sort of tormenting or, enriching the lives of others. But that's your Mothman.
So, was it like the movie where the Mothman would only show up before, like any like tragic events, or was that just the thing for the movie?
That was more for the movie, but it is associated with abductions, and usually abductions are associated with UFO abductions. But if you want to go, Old Testament, it could be like Ezekiel or Enoch or Muhammad or whatever. Sort of taking visitations to beyond the firmament, if you like.
So essentially, the Mothman is something that's been around since the dawn of time.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But the original Mothman stories are from the 60s. It's here 64, 66. So there's no specific Mothman stories before that. But, if you look at enough statues and bas-reliefs and images and cave paintings and whatever, there are things that could easily pass for the same being. But, I don't know if that's just the same as... you can look at some of the inscriptions and drawings and carvings and petroglyphs, in Mesoamerica, and look at the ones in, ancient, the Near East or Middle East or Egypt, and they look the same, and say it's the same thing. So who knows? Don't really know, but the actual Mothman itself is from the 60s.
All right. Next one, La Llorona, the woman in white. There's been plenty of stories about her. There was a terrible movie about her. She's been on different television shows like Supernatural and Grimm. What can you tell me about La Llorona?
Okay, well, we talked about the woman in white in the last crossover show, and it's really the same thing. La Llorona is sort of the south of the Rio Grande version. It's not limited to Mexico, but it does seem to be mostly north of Panama, and mostly in Mexico. And La Llorona is a woman that lost her children. How? There's a variety of different stories. One is that she was raped and the father killed them. One is that she was cheating and she or the father killed them in shame. One is that another is that they just died. Another is that she killed them, and that's probably the most popular one, that she killed her own children in madness, and then after sort of waking up from her postpartum depression or madness, her grief was so strong that she killed herself. But the operative thing is a loss of children or a perceived loss of children due to something tragic, killing oneself or being murdered. And because a lot of ghost stories they're sort of tethered, there's hooks to a particular area or event, that she wanders wailing at night. There's some associations also with the Irish Banshee myth, which is also a woman who scoops up children, which goes back all the way to the old Lulu myths of the sort of the harpy children of daughter monsters, Adam's first wife, who basically steals kids from birth. A lot of these things are metaphors or allegories for stillbirth and, the amount of women and kids who, die in childbirth. Pregnancy, it's still pretty damn dangerous, but, up until about 150 years ago, it was really dangerous. Chances are somebody was dying in childbirth, whether it was the child or the mother, which might explain a lot of the, polygamy things and the be fruitful and prosper and, the patriarchy. But going a little deep here. Anyway, La Llorona, basically she's a ghost wailing who wants children to replace her loss. And, she may just abduct yours, so watch your kids.
Hide your kids, hide your wife. Next one that I'm kind of familiar with, not too familiar with, is El Cucuy.
Okay, well, this is sort of an easy one. It's a boogeyman.
Right.
This is also Latin American, mostly south of the Rio Grande and the northern part of South America. There's the cuckoo, the coco, cucuy, cuckoo, cucoy, It's pronounced different ways in different places: Cuba, Costa Rica, Colombia, Mexico. But basically, it's a boogeyman. It's a story to keep your kids in line. Two versions of the cuckoo, whatever you want to call it, is that one is that it's sort of like trollish, but it has one very large ear, so it can hear everything. The other is that it has two very large ears, but more or less humanoid. A little stocky, a little maybe, ogreish, but, normal skin, just like maybe like a Mr. Hyde kind of ugly guy. So but the big version is if the parents scream too much at the kids, the cuckoo knows that the kids are being bad, and it'll abduct the kids and take them, to its mountain lair, basically like Jack and the Beanstalk, or in the Russian forest, Baba Yaga. It's a boogeyman. It's a method to keep kids. Yeah. If you want to scare your kids, the cuckoo is going to come and get you if you're not good.
Or John Wick.
You have to kill his dog.
When you said Baba Yaga, I thought John Wick. He's like, he's not exactly the boogeyman. He's the guy you sent to kill the fucking boogeyman. Love that one. This one sounds kind of similar to La Llorona. The next one is Vanishing Hitcher. Similar.
Yes. The interesting thing is that, I looked into more urban legends than the ones you gave me, and unfortunately, most of them are just ghost stories. Like the same ghost stories that people were telling us when I went to camp around the campfire. I mean, they're updated, they're different versions a little bit, but basically they're things to make stuff that at one point were considered safe or still considered safe and make them feel unsafe. So like the call from inside the house, scream, and, a stranger calls, was basically to make parents afraid and babysitters afraid, something that is perfectly normal, and all of a sudden you put this element of danger in it. So, I mean, most of the audience is probably too young for this, but hitchhiking was big. Hitchhiking was big, basically from the 50s into the 80s. And then there were all sorts of myths about, one, the hitchhiker is a killer. Two, the hitchhiker is the victim of crime. And The Vanishing Hitcher is a story of that you're driving on usually it's a country road or a suburban road. You pick up a hitchhiker, and it's usually a young woman, and she says, my car broke down, I need help, I need to get to my parents' house, can you take me there? And so then you take them there, and you look in your rearview mirror, and there's nobody there. And in some of the stories, you actually go to the house, and you knock on the door, and you go, hey, I'm sorry, I brought your daughter back, but she left the car. Did she get in? Did I just miss her come in, or did she come in through the back door? And usually one of the parents will yell at them, and then the other parent will come and say, walk with me. And you'll be like, what's up? And, let's just say it's the dad. And the father says, once every 6 or 7 months, somebody shows up and says the same thing. I don't know who you picked up, but it wasn't my daughter. My daughter died 6 years ago in a car accident.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. So it's a ghost trying to get home, but of course the ghost can never quite get home.
Yeah, like I was mentioned, there's been different stories. I keep coming back to Supernatural, sorry. But, I know in, the first episode, they did kind of like a mixture of, the Woman in White and the Vanishing Hitcher, where, they blended both stories of the woman wanting to seduce a man that's already in a relationship, and they end up going back to the house, and then she just vanishes, and then she kills him, which is, again... And then, there was another show on, I'm forgetting the channel. I think it was Travel Channel. It was Paranormal Experience, where, they talked about the Woman in White and, stuff like that. So, I know my brother-in-law, Betty's brother, he, not to give too much away because it's his story, but, he's had experiences in the past. And, yeah, the stories he tells me, there's one particular story I don't want to get too much into, but the hairs on my arm were standing up. That's how how freaky it was. So,
Well, the Vanishing Hitcher story hits me hard, and I'll tell you why. Not because anything like that happened to me, but I don't remember exactly when it was, but I was with my parents and my brother, so obviously we're kids. I mean, maybe we were, I was probably a young teenager. My brother was probably, somewhere between 9 and 11, something like that. There's 3 years between us. And we were driving somewhere in New England, and my parents used to love taking weekend drives. We skied a lot, but sometimes they just want to go to the foliage. I have a feeling, in hindsight, maybe they wanted to get hotel rooms and have a little privacy. I don't know, but whatever it was, I remember once my father stopped and picked up a hitchhiker, and like we're all saying no, and my mother's like, no, don't do it. And he's like, well, what can happen? The person needs a ride. Blah, blah, blah. And my father's still that way. He's still sort of that goofy, friendly, what can happen kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And he picked up the hitchhiker, and we took the hitchhiker to wherever they go, and nothing happened. And then on our way back driving, the hitchhiker was still back in the same place where we picked them, like we're hitchhiking again. So I don't know if they just decided that they didn't kill kids, or they were, a group of 4 was too much to deal with. But something wasn't kosher there. That was like a near miss, I think. I don't think they got to where they were going, then they decided to make a return trip, and then decided to turn around and go back to the direction from whence they came. Something was up there.
I kind of have a story similar to that. It doesn't have anything to do with hitchhiking, but I guess it's helping out a stranger. So I wasn't personally...
Never help strangers.
I'm sorry?
Never help strangers.
Oh, I don't. But I actually wasn't here when this happened. Me and Betty this was back in 2017, and this is when we were in Universal Studios for the first time in 2017. And her sister was here by herself, just watching the house. And she was saying that, all of it, she just hears this loud, I can't do it obviously, but this loud knock on our sliding glass window that goes to the backyard. And what the hell? There's this woman outside, and she's wet, and she has really long hair and it's covering her face. And what the fuck is that noise?
Is what the fuck is this noise part of the story, or do you actually hear a noise?
I hear a really loud noise after I hit the microphone. I'm hearing this really loud noise. I don't know what that is, but sorry. Let me try to tell the story. So this girl is outside, and she pounds on the glass window, and like I said, she's soaking wet, and they bring her. She brings her inside, and the whole time she's saying, "I can't go back. I can't go back." And my sister-in-law is trying to help her. Are you okay? Do you need me to call the cops or anything? And she just very quietly gets up and leaves and just walks away. And a few days later, we found out that girl was killed a house away from us. And it's one of those things of was she already dead? Did they just see a ghost? Or I don't know. It was a freaky story when I heard it. But
that is freaky. Before we go on, there's a few people listening in. I mean, if any of them have their own little ghost stories, raise your hands, and if you have something you want to say, we can hear from you too. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's an open invitation. But I don't know if you do, if you don't.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, if you guys have any paranormal experiences or just anything that was just out of the ordinary, please, say it. Tell us. This is the right forum to talk about that kind of stuff.
I will tell you a ghost story which is absolutely 100% true. And this actually occurred in mine, but it's spooky, but nothing bad happened. So I think probably most of your audience knows that, I'm 54. I've got 2 kids. The kids are, they're both, basically adults at this point. They also probably know I'm divorced. So this story goes back to probably 2002, 2001. And this is when my youngest was still in a crib. and we have baby monitors, and I guess people still do have baby monitors. And, they work pretty well, and every now and then they catch static from something else, and, that's just normal. Every now and then you hear, whatever, something like that. So one night I'm having a dream about my grandfather, and my grandfather died, I don't know, 84 or something like that. And my grandmother was still alive at the time. This is my maternal grandparents, and my one child time, knew my grandmother. I mean, a little bit. She was Gigi for great grandma, and she died when he was about 4. So, he knew her but didn't know her. He's 1.5, 2 years old. What does he know? Who knows? But the point is, it was enough time that we never spoke about my grandfather. He didn't know what we called my grandfather. I didn't call my grandfather Grandpa, and we called him Poppy. And I never mentioned that. I mean, it just wasn't something that came up because the man had been dead for 18 years. And if it ever came up, it was probably when he was an infant and couldn't process words and shit like that. Anyway, so I had that dream, and then I hear the stat go crazy, and this was not part of the dream. Because my now ex-wife woke up, I woke up, and we hear Jake talking. And that's his name. And, he's obviously over 1. He's between 1 and 2. So talking is, a little bit of babble, but there's words there. So he's like saying something like, "Hi, how are you?" Something like that. And we run in there. We're like, "What's going on? Who are you talking to? Are you all right?" And he goes, "I'm okay. I'm great." Actually, that's what he said. He goes, "I'm great." I said, "Okay, well, that's cool. Or not that's cool, but terrific. But who are you talking to?" "I was talking to Poppy, and he was just saying he wanted to meet me, and he was glad I was doing great."
Oh.
And that was really fucking weird. And so my ex-wife, her name is Penny. She looked at me. She goes, "Were you talking about your grandfather with Jake?" I'm like, "No." And she had never met my grandfather either. I'm like, I don't really talk about family. I'm not that sort. Surprise, surprise. And I'm like, "Were you?" She's like, "No, I don't think I've ever mentioned his name." And it was just really weird, and we were really freaked out, and I'm still a little freaked out of it today. And the static, the static is what woke us up. So, they say when a ghost comes in a room that, sort of your electricity goes crazy. They also say it goes cold, but maybe that's for an evil ghost. Obviously, this wasn't an evil ghost. It just seemed like he wanted to check in, see how my life was going, and meet his great-grandchild, and he did, and then he's like, "Yep, going back to rest."
You know what? Something similar like that happened with my family. It didn't happen to me because I haven't seen anything. I've never seen any ghosts. I think the closest I've been to a paranormal activity, pun intended, is just I would feel things, but I never actually seen anything. My actual brother, my brother-in-law, and my blood brother, they both see things. And my dad's family. What was that?
I see dead people.
Yes. No, my brother Michael legit sees ghosts. Ever since he was a kid and to this day, he sees things. And
why hasn't he been on my show?
I don't know. I'll ask him. I'll ask my brother, "Do you want to be on Jeff Lippman's show?" And he's going to be like, "What the fuck's a Jeff Lippman?" But no, I don't know. I don't think my brother likes talking about that kind of stuff, but I'll bring it up to him. Trust me.
All right.
I remember one time my mom told a story where she says one of my brother's, I guess his girlfriend at the time, when Michael was walking down, to his car, she noticed that there was an old man right behind my brother with his hand on his shoulder, and he was smiling. And she's the only one that saw it, and she brought it up to my brother, and she's like, "Who's that old man behind you?" And he was like, "What old man?" And I guess she saw a picture of my grandfather, my dad's dad, who died even before my brother was born. My brother was born in '84, so he died before that. And she saw a picture and was like, "That's the old man I saw." And he's like, "That's my granddad. He's been dead for a long time." And So it's pretty nuts. But it wasn't, again, like you. It wasn't a thing of like he just, he didn't want to come out to haunt people. He just came down to like check on people, like to check on my brother and my dad.
There's a lot of belief that the first religions were ancestor worship, so this is nothing new.
Goof has a story. So he says, before we took the carpet out of my living room in my childhood home, I always used to hear footsteps like someone was walking towards the front of the room, or the occasional loud bang like someone who had dropped something heavy on the floor. Even when I was the only one home or nobody was up and about. Fast forward a few years ago, we removed the carpet from the living room, leaving just the hardwood floor. It hasn't happened since. That's just my dumb ghost story. I mean, any ghost story is a ghost story, Goof. So just, yeah. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, you had a haunted carpet. Like anything could always like have some attachment to it, whether it be carpet, it could be a couch, it could be a mattress. Anything has an attachment to it. So
that's right. The interesting thing about Goof is he would rather type out all those paragraphs instead of just raise his hand and tell the story himself.
Right. I mean, he told the story, so. But again, anyone has a story, let us know. Next topic. Next on my topic is black-eyed children.
All right. Black-eyed children are a little bit weird, but they're okay. So, I mean, this is the standard black-eyed children. You get approached by two kids someplace where you shouldn't see two kids alone. You're sort of concerned for their welfare, and you're looking around for help, and you're trying to help them, trying to give them shelter, hot chocolate, whatever you're trying to do. And then you turn around, and their eyes are completely black. And, they're sort of looking at you. Well, I mean, the expression on their face, just picture the expression like from Smile, similar to that, nothing earnest in it, just a little malevolent, maybe not complete Joker smile, but the eyes are completely black, and that's usually a portend of something, terrible happening, but it mostly is just to scare the shit out of you, because in the story, obviously, there's a teller, and the teller usually escapes.
I haven't heard too many stories on black-eyed children. I know there's a short horror film I was watching about black-eyed children, and I'm trying to think of, there was a movie called Village of the Damned, but that really didn't have anything to do with black-eyed children. But
yeah, that's all the same. Children of the Corn, black-eyed children. It ranges from whether it's a possession, whether they were a demonic spirit all along. Everything gets associated with aliens as well. Aliens and demons. I mean, it's all part of the same spectrum. But yeah, and there are cases where people say that unsolved murders is that they were kids seen wandering there, but I mean, every time the story is told, obviously it's somebody survived it. And again, usually it's in a suburban area, not urban, which is disappointing because this is supposed to be urban legends. But I was disappointed to find how few of the urban legends were actually urban.
Right. Next is Wendigo. Most I know about Wendigo is it's a Native American myth about. Well, Jeff's going to explain. He did his homework. So, Jeff, tell the people what you know.
I love the Wendigo. Everyone loves the Wendigo, and that's clear because they made a bunch of movies about the Wendigo. The Ritual is actually my favorite. Some people really like Antlers, which came out about a year and a half ago. I thought it was okay. Anyway, that version of the Wendigo is the popular one. The historic description isn't really that. Anyway, this is an Algonquin myth. The Algonquins were one of the most successful cultures, and I say culture, not tribe, because there were several, probably dozens of tribes within the Algonquin family. So the Algonquins were from basically north central Canada through the Great Lakes on both sides of what's now Canada and the United States, down into the plains like Illinois, Minnesota, and all the way to northeastern Canada, and down the eastern seaboard of the U.S., probably as far as my neck of the woods. So, like, the Iroquois nation had Algonquin longhouses. So there's lots of different versions of the Wendigo as people diverged and separated, and then dialects and cultures and myths became differentiated, but there is one commonality, and the commonality is that a hunter or a group of hunters went somewhere where it was very cold. Remember, part of this is a lot of this land is near or above the Arctic Circle. They got trapped or stuck, couldn't find any food. They held up to keep warm or whatever. There was no food, and one of the hunters, a human ate another human, cannibalism, and to survive. And so being very cold and eating another human is the commonality. It doesn't seem to be goal-driven. It doesn't seem to be choice-driven. It happens. It's sort of, a tale against cannibalism. Or if you want to become a Wendigo, I guess it's a tale pro-cannibalism. The most common version of the Wendigo, looks-wise, is basically a man that's very emaciated, ashen gray skin. Oh, one thing about the Skinwalker I forgot to say is remind me of ways to kill Wendigo and ways to kill Skinwalker after this. So I don't want to jump all over the place.
I mean, I heard for a Wendigo fireworks, not fireworks, but fire does work. That's what I meant.
No, yeah. There's a lot of similarities between the Wendigo death and what you would consider a vampire or a zombie. The original Wendigo probably looks a lot like some of the vampires, except the teeth aren't really canines, I guess, to the extent that humans have canines. I mean, the teeth are all very elongated because it's basically the skin is taut back. It's so taut that you have no gum line, so your teeth look really long. In some versions, it's not someone that's skeletal. It's actually that the bones are on the outside. They're that gaunt. But kind of look like you might think of like a vampire. Or if, like, I don't know if anybody watched the show Britannica on Epix, but sort of like the druid. I sort of picture him. Or sort of like the vampires in The Strain, like the regular vampires. But it's basically a revenant. It's a zombie. It doesn't maintain much humanity. It just has a never-ending craving of food. It smells of death. It smells of death and sewage. I mean, rotting sewage. Like I picture like a sewer, and like I don't know if anyone's ever had an open wound and they made the mistake of smelling it, like that, like sewage and that smell, like basically rotting flesh, death, decay. The smell follows you, and it's a mimic. So it can make noises, but it can also deceive you with the noises. So if it sounds like it's close, it's probably far away. But if it sounds like it's close, it's too late. It's like right behind you. And in some versions of the story, no matter how much it eats, it grows to that size so that it's always hungry. So if it eats 3 people, it grows 3 people size, but it's still hungry because it needs more. In some versions, the limbs get elongated, but there's always claws and talons, or even like animal-like feet. But it's preternaturally strong. It's actually supernaturally fast and strong, sort of like a vampire in that, very fast, very savage. Only the greatest of warriors even stands a chance against a Wendigo. A Wendigo can be killed in 2 ways, basically. Basically, complete dismemberment, like vicious, bloodletting, and you can't stop with just cutting off its legs. There's actually a story where a warrior cut off the Wendigo's legs, and everyone thought it was dead, and they went back a few days later, and the Wendigo's still alive, sucking its own bone marrow out of its legs, laughing at the warriors for failing, and then, of course, they finished the job. But, yeah. Cutting out its cold, icy heart is one version of killing it, or cutting off its head, sort of like zombie or vampire. And then it is either necessary or strongly advise it, either way you think you killed the Wendigo, to burn it in fire, and that will get rid of the Wendigo. Now, over time, the Wendigo has taken on some other shapes, having like the stag's head or the stag's antlers and skulls head. That's not in the original version, but it's been so popular that why not? I personally like it better because it's scary as fuck, and it's creepy, and antlers are scary, and, but that was probably Americanized, Europeanized, Anglicized, whatever you want to call it, because, a lot of your Celtic, Norse, Germanic, sort of pagan rituals involved antlers and horns and things like that. So that was probably, it's probably some form of cultural appropriation, but it still looks cool. But anyway, it doesn't change the properties of the Wendigo. So that's how you kill. The Skinwalker can be killed in very much the same way, except the key is white ash. So white ash from fire to cover you. It's almost like a silver bullet for a werewolf. You can put it on a bullet, you can put it on a knife, a spear, arrows, but it's got to go through the heart or through the brain, or again, dismemberment. But the white ash is the key to killing it. Anything else, it'll heal, just like the Wendigo. Anything else, it'll probably heal. I'm not sure if, like Deadpool, if you cut off its legs, that they would ultimately grow back or reattach. Never heard that, but it could maybe like in The Walking Dead, like it could just wander around crawling on its hands, dragging itself forward. That much I'm not sure about. I didn't encounter a story or a tale with reassemblage. The Skinwalker will reassemble. So the Skinwalker, since it's magic, as opposed to a curse, will reassemble. The cursed, not necessarily.
And last on my list is Bloody Mary.
Okay. So Bloody Mary is basically the movie Candyman. Bloody Mary, two versions of Bloody Mary. One, a woman that was brutally murdered. Two, a witch that was burned, at the stake. Either way, very violent, and they're really mad about it. So if you say Bloody Mary into a mirror 3 times, she will appear behind you and A, either kill you viciously, or B, kill you the way that she was killed. Either way, not a good combination. But basically, she's a woman version of Candyman, which, so Candyman is an adaptation sort of the Bloody Mary story, but that's Bloody Mary, and it's, I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked in the mirror in a while and said Bloody Mary 3 times, so, maybe somebody should try it. Maybe CM fucking Goof should try it in that, where he finds that carpet and see what happens. But yeah, that's Bloody Mary. Probably a witch. I'm going to go with the witch version.
I don't fuck with that. I mean, it's one of those things of just like, yeah, maybe it's just, a tale of, maybe kids trying to scare each other, but it's just like, you know what? I'm not going to take that fucking chance. Same thing with Candyman. I know Candyman is just a movie, and it's also one of my favorite horror movies. It's one of my top 5 favorite horror movies. I'm not going to take that chance of looking in the mirror and saying it 5 times. I'm good on that.
The Candyman's a real urban legend, based a little bit on truth, but it's not really. The Candyman originally was the fear of, someone poisoning or putting, razor blades or things in Halloween candy. And, everyone says, oh, that happened, 2 towns over. And apparently it hasn't happened, but it did happen with Tylenol. Like the Tylenol poisoner, basically was stealing from the Candyman urban legend. And that's why you have those safety caps, and then that annoying, aluminum plastic double, seal that you have to basically cut through to get to your aspirin.
All right. That's pretty much everything from my list. Did you have anything?
Growing up, I grew up in New York, not too far out of the city. My father worked in the city. That's Manhattan. In New York, you just call it the city, but that means Manhattan. Doesn't mean Brooklyn, doesn't mean Queens, doesn't mean Staten Island, doesn't mean the Bronx. It means Manhattan. That's the city in New York. That's New York. A little New Yorkese for those of you who are not from New York. And no matter where I am, if you say the city, it means New York City. You can say, "Are you going to the city?" I'm like, "Not going to New York." No, I mean, are you going downtown Baltimore? No. And say Baltimore. Don't say the city. The city is only one place. It's New York. Anyway, alligators in the sewer. There was this myth that they were alligators in sewers, that people would get these baby alligators as pets, and once they got a little bit too big, they couldn't care for them, and they flushed them down the toilet, and then you have these giant alligators, man-eating alligators, living in the sewers. Other variations with giant rats and things like that. I don't know that they ever actually found an alligator in any sewer, and if they did, it was usually just like a pet-sized one, and probably someone trying to see if they could make the story come true. However, in Florida, pythons are a real thing. Like, there's people to kill pythons because so many people get pythons as pets and then they can't handle them, and they let them go in the wild, or not quite the wild, and you've got these like 13 to 20 foot long Burmese pythons, running around who can easily crush a person to death. So pythons in Florida, that's a fact. I already talked about the Candyman. Of course, there's Jewish space lasers. Those are true. I control them. So watch out. I have all of you embedded in chips where I can target you. And then, of course, here in the Washington, D.C. area, there's a pizza place. We're in the basement. They traffic, stolen children without parents or families that ever make complaints for them. Huh. And in satanic rituals, they slay them and drink the blood so that people like the Clintons can live forever. I mean, so there's that.
Yeah, the whole thing is just dumb as shit. Like, I saw that documentary that was on HBO. I forgot what it was called. I think it was called After the Storm or something. The Storm, and they talked about that, and it's just none of that shit is actually true.
No, it's ridiculous. So the thing about the human trafficking is, like, there is human trafficking, and it's terrible. I mean, but it's usually people trying to get from one country to another. And yeah, sometimes they pay a lot, and sometimes the price that they pay for it is terrible, which includes prostitution or sort of forced labor. And sometimes it is technically children. But, like, I know in, like, Gen Y and Gen Z, like, pedophilia is, like, a giant issue, and it's a terrible issue. But pedophilia outside of the family or outside of, like, a circle of trust, like a teacher, a priest, a relative, is, like, extraordinarily rare. And let's just call them the QAnon folks or whatever, who were talking about all the human trafficking, they get the number 400,000 a year from a 2002 Department of Justice report that said up to 400,000 children went missing. You go missing a year. The problem with that report is that A, it's up to, but B, it counts everything. And by everything, I mean every time a dad or mom loses track of their kid in the mall and called the police, that gets counted. Every time a teenager runs away from home for 2 or 3 hours and the police got called, that gets counted. Every time it's a runaway who just runs away and runs to LA or Vegas or whatever to try to pursue their dream or whatever, that gets counted. It's every time a parent who loses a custody battle abducts their child, every time you see an Amber Alert, that gets counted in that number. So, and some of it is just extrapolation. So, obviously it's not 400,000 toddlers, because otherwise you'd be hearing from, 800,000 parents and 2.4 million grandparents and family members and whatever it is. And, are they all being paid hush money to keep quiet about their kid being missing? So, I mean, just the math alone is absurd. But that's where that 400,000 number comes from. And, like, people point to it like it's a fact. And, it's worrisome. And it really diminishes when there's truly something that happens that's, awful, because that's awful enough. But, yeah, that's sort of the background there. But there might be something to, placental fluids and, platelets and stem cells and whatever. I mean, there may be some scientific basis that people actually doing, drinking that or imbibing it in mass is not. But I can't say it's never happened, just like there are people who use rhino powder to make them, good in bed and shit like that. But, that's that's one of the newer urban myths that exists and seems to have caught purchase with a significant percentage of people.
Probably gonna say. So seems like that's it for our list. Did you have anything else to add to the topic?
There's some cool ones. I think every city has one, sort of like Baltimore, where in Baltimore there's a statue. Well, it was called Black Aggie, and it was in Baltimore. Now it was actually with the Smithsonian for a while, and they lost track of it. But people know where it is now. It's actually on display. But it's sort of like the woman in Savannah. That's the statue that's waving at the ships. Like there's always like a ghost that it's almost like every city has their La Llorona, which is sort of captured in a statue, but the statue can come to life, and it's so wicked that if you look at it, that you will lose children. That if you're anywhere near them and you're pregnant, you will miscarry. I mean, it's basically the same tale, just stuck in a statue. But in Baltimore, we have one called Black Aggie, and it was in the Druid Hill Cemetery, which is actually not far at all from where I live. It's really close to the Baltimore Zoo, also, which is weird. But it's like I said, it's not there anymore. There's also a myth for a while that Jack the Ripper or Jack the Ripper's ghost came to Baltimore and became the Phantom of O'Donnell Heights, which is Baltimore has there's like a million neighborhoods in Baltimore, and I'm not sure that anyone exactly knows where they start or where they stop. But he's called Spring-Heeled Jack in Baltimore, and dressed in all black, wicked and nasty, and a great leaper, sort of like Slender Man's a great leaper. But kill people, like a serial killer. But with again, supernatural powers. And he would whisper to people. He'd be under cars. Basically made of rubber. Again, sort of like a lot like Slender Man, very dexterous, flexible. And he would whisper, "Come closer, my dear. Come closer, my dear." They even form residential patrols with torches and whatever to chase after him, and so they say that they chased the Phantom deep to a local cemetery, and they saw him slip into a crypt where he's never been heard from again. So that's a convenient end to that one. And then we have Carl Atticus, and this is a story about a movie that people saw in the early 70s in Baltimore in the Patterson Theater, which, by the way, is a historic theater which kept on closing down until something called the Creative Alliance purchased it recently to save it, and it's sort of, they have shows and shit like that. It's actually pretty cool. Anyway, the movie was called Mortal Remains, and people saw it and they went mad. They basically, if they saw it, they had a frenzy riot. Fortunately or unfortunately, no one can find that this movie actually existed, or that Carl Atticus ever existed, or that there were any grave robbings or the murders or the necrophilia associated with Mr. Atticus, or that there was ever a movie created this way, or that it ever showed, or that there was ever any reports of these kinds of bizarre items happening during a movie screening. So, what can I tell you? No, but all there is that there's a Mortal Remains documentary claiming it to happen, but no one can find it, even though it's called the father of the modern slasher film. That's Baltimore. Washington has its own. So there's ones that everyone has heard of, the Curse of the Hope Diamond. Everyone knows the Hope Diamond. And that if you go near it, it brings misfortune and tragedy to anyone who owns or wears it. There's been numerous victims of the curse. There's the French finance minister, I think it's French, Nicolas Fouquet, the Turkish Sultan Abdul Hamid, and a French princess, de Lambille. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, the Hope Diamond is so dangerous it's in the Smithsonian and people can still see it. In the Capitol, there's something called the Demon Cat. And apparently many members of Congress and their aides throughout the years have reported seeing this demon cat that haunts the Capitol building. It's just a cat. but with, always shining eyes, like it's always dark and light's reflected from it. It's in the basement tunnels of the Capitol. If anyone's been to the Capitol complex and in DC, like, so much is connected by tunnels. It's crazy. Like all of the congressional buildings and the old executive office building, and there's probably tunnels that we don't even know about, but they're all connected by tunnels. It's a whole catacomb situation there, and apparently they brought in cats to kill rats, and one of them never left. And it's seen before presidential elections and tragedies, which goes on to the old story about presidents that were elected in the year 20, or every 20 years die. The Tippecanoe myth. So you had Tippecanoe and Harris too, and then you had Abraham Lincoln. There was another president that died. Reagan was shot in 80, but George Bush W, that is, obviously was elected in a 20-year increment, and he survived and still lives today. Right now, Joe Biden, well, we'll see. He's like 80 years old, but he's still alive as far as we know. The exorcism. This supposedly happened in Georgetown.
The Exorcist?
The Exorcist. I'm sorry, the movie The Exorcist, yeah.
Right.
It was supposed to be a 14-year-old boy that was possessed by the devil, and this actually appeared on the front page of the Washington Post in 1949. We have our own version of the Three Sisters curse. This is sort of a template in a lot of myths really around the world, where three sisters or three women go after a brother or someone beloved. They drown in a river or a body of water, and they convert into islands so that other people are warned not to do that again. We have our own version. These are also Algonquin sisters, and this is in the Potomac River. So, being that I researched this, and I said earlier Algonquin maybe as far as my neck of the woods, duh. Obviously it is, because DC's about 50 miles south of me. They tried to rescue their brother. They failed, but they converted themselves they were converted into islands, because they wisely all cursed the spot before they could take their final breath. And you can hear a strange moaning heard from the Potomac, before the curse strikes. So if somebody doesn't heed their warnings, they could get killed on the rapids. You have the chamber under the ellipse. So there's that big circle area in D.C., sort of in the middle. There's like a small one in front of the White House, and then a larger one. I think it's right after. I think it's l'Enfant Circle. I'm not sure, but it's a circular part. They say behind the White House, but I think it's actually in the front. And it's sort of in between some of the other government buildings. It's said to be the center of Washington. The park is marked as the Meridian. It was called that in 1890. There's a plaque that says so. And there's a belief that there is a secret chamber under there, possibly built by the Illuminati and Templars and Masons, that holds jewels and treasures, including possibly the Treasure of Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, and all sorts of other things. And then sort of related, but almost opposite, is the belief that, one, if you look at the design of DC on certain maps, the way they have it shaped out, it's weirdly shaped like the entire continental United States, which is odd because that wasn't the United States when DC was shaped. It was, before the Louisiana Purchase, and certainly before all the westward expansion, Manifest Destiny, whatever you want to call it. But there's also a conspiracy theory that suggests that Pierre l'Enfant was a member of the Illuminati. He's the designer of Washington, D.C., among many other cities and famous places, and that he incorporated demonic symbols into the street design, including an eye, including an inverted pentagram, which points towards the White House, and thus that's pointing the devil towards the White House.
Ooh.
Ta-da.
So Trump is the devil. Ah.
Well, Trump's no longer the president, so. But in the conspiracy theories involving Trump, Trump is actually the imperfect vessel to defeat the Antichrist. So he's not the Messiah. He's not, but he is the opponent of the Antichrist. If you ever want to go deep into the QAnon beliefs, those beliefs actually, they didn't originate them. They existed before, but they adopted Trump as their guy, which is really strange. But yeah, there's a belief that when the Antichrist is among us, that there will be an anti-Antichrist, which is there to battle him, which will pave the way for the Messiah to come back. So,
the Antichrist plus.
Yeah, we lost half our audience on all of that. I guess I guess those are Trump fans. I don't know.
It's like how every streaming service is a plus. It's like the Antichrist plus.
Exactly, the Antichrist plus. Plus.
The less said about Trump on the show, the better.
Yeah, except this is. I mean, this is actually what Trump supporters believe. So, I mean, it's not like anti-Trump to say it.
So we got about an hour 15 of content. Did you want to kind of talk about anything else, or did you want to leave on a high note?
Are you assuming that we're going to go on a low note after this? Is that the confidence that you have?
It's going to get worse after this. I'm playing. No, I was saying, like, did you want to kind of talk about what we were talking about in the chat, or do you want to save that for like a Patreon show?
It's up to you, man. I mean, it's Christmas. I can be generous, but I can leave also and still watch SmackDown. I can notify Jimmy T and see if he's around. He wanted to do 3 wrestling podcasts today, which, Jesus. If anyone knows Jimmy T, that it's almost impossible that will happen. But but I'm the eternal optimist, despite being evil dose. And I've got Christmas dinner tonight, and I want to watch. What's that guy's name? Oh, he was in Hellboy 2. He's from Stranger Things. He was Red Crimson. Red Dynamite.
That Violent Night?
Harbour. David Harbour. Yeah. I think that looks like awful, but in a lot of fun kind of way.
Oh yeah. So speaking of movies, so I was like, we talked in the chat about, did you want to do like our favorite movies, our least favorite movies of the year, just save that for another show? And you had mentioned that I can just read off my list and can maybe just spark something in your head. Do you want to do that?
That's fine. Yeah, that sounds cool, because I don't have a very good memory. I don't think I went to the movies at all this year, so I saw so much stuff on cable and streaming services, but so many new things come out so quickly now. So I don't really remember what was this year. So yeah, why don't you do your list? I mean, I could probably tell you some of the most disappointing, but yeah, do your list and then we'll riff from there a little bit.
So I have my top 10 favorite movies and my top 10 least favorite, and I say least favorite because there are movies that weren't particularly bad. They were just kind of a letdown for me. Like I didn't like them as much as I should. And then there were just movies that were just all around bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my list, my top 10 favorite movies. I'll just start from 10, which happens to be X, which is, is the Roman numeral for 10. And I liked it. Jeff didn't like it. I usually am not a big fan of slashers, but I don't know, just something about this movie did it for me. I just thought it had a very authentic feel. The kills looked more legit and not like wacky over the top violence, so I enjoyed it. Another movie, the unbearable weight of talent. Oh, massive talent. There you go. Which was Nick Cage playing Nick Cage, and I just thought it was a funny movie. There hasn't been too many great comedies in the past few years, and I just thought this was funny. I liked it. You had likable characters like Pedro Pascal, who's gonna be in everything. He's gonna be the Last of Us TV show, which I can't wait for that. So I like this.
You have an idea. After you do 3, let me comment on those 3 movies, and then you can pick it up from there.
All right. Another one was a movie that came out on Hulu. Matter of fact, I have 2 movies that came out on Hulu, which were my favorite movies of the year. Fresh, which had Sebastian Stan, who plays the Winter Soldier in the Marvel movies, and Daisy Edgar Jones, who's kind of like the new kid on the block as far as like actresses go, and she's really good in this. This is a horror movie. This is very much kind of like a feminist kind of horror movie, but not like as they say, woke horror movies.
Ooh.
Like this is a movie about a girl who goes on bad dates, and then she ends up running into Sebastian Stan at the grocery store of all places. And as you can imagine, Sebastian Stan is very charming. He's very funny. He's polite. He's a good-looking dude. And then you find out he's kind of a psycho. So this is a movie I recommend. It's on Hulu if you have Hulu. So go out of your way to watch it. So that's 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have Hulu, so I can't really comment on Fresh. I didn't see it, and probably the next movie will be the same. X, I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was like a sort of an average movie. Like there were parts I liked. I mean, I very much enjoyed the giant alligator, swallowing someone up whole. I thought a couple of the kills were good, but good kills and good gore don't make a good movie. I mean, Halloween Kills had some great violence in it. Malignant rather, had a terrific violence scene. I mean, one of the best violence scenes ever was in that women's holding cell. But I thought it was a horrible movie. So X to me just seemed like it was okay. So many people talked it up so much that when I saw it, I thought it was just meh. But on the Nicolas Cage movie, I liked it. It was fun. I mean, it was a little bit goofy, but it was fun. It was a fun little movie, and it was different. So it was charming in its own way, and Nicolas Cage was funny, and he's sort of spoofing his own real life situation, which I thought was fun. So yeah, I like that movie. I would recommend it.
So after Fresh, I'm at number 7, The Batman, which I've told you, I've told everybody, and the first hour and a half of that movie, the first hour 40 was perfect. After that is when it started to kind of go off the rails for me. Not necessarily a bad way, but it's just like the whole movie was predicated on this is a Batman movie, meets Seven. And that I love that. It's a detective movie set in the world of Seven. And then that last half act just seemed like the studio going, well, we need a spectacle. Because kids are going to watch this, and this is a comic book movie. So that last act, I think, really defeated the purpose of the movie, and it just felt like I was watching 2 different movies. And whenever I feel like I'm watching 2 different movies, that's usually not a good thing. Well, for me, anyways. But the Batman, that's my number 7. Number 6 was still a movie. It was a special on Disney Plus. It was Werewolf by Night. It's a Marvel short. It's something I didn't think it was going to be a movie. I thought it was going to be a series, but it ended up being a short movie, like 48 minutes, 50 something minutes, and I really liked this a lot. I thought it was really good. It's about a very obscure character from like the 1950s, 1960s, and nobody's really ever heard of this character unless you're like a hardcore comic book reader. And I really enjoyed this. I liked it. It gave you that, 1940s, 1950s Universal movie monster feel. And, it was gory. I think for a Disney Plus, Marvel thing, it was gory. And then come to find out they were able to be gory because it was black and white. So you're able to like block out the blood. And it was just something that was enjoyable. I think it was enjoyable for everyone to watch because, it wasn't connected to anything. It was its own thing. It was standalone. So I think that's what made you enjoy it more because it felt unique. It felt like it was in its own world. So, and then Man Thing was just gorgeous. I want to see more Man Thing. So that was my number 6. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I too liked Werewolf by Night. I wouldn't call it a movie. It could have been a little bit longer, a little bit more fleshed out, but I think that because characters aren't well known, I think they decided that they made a conscious choice, but it was a very nice homage to the old Universal movies. It had the right level of campiness and comedy, well acted. I love. I agree with you. I like the level of gore. I like because it was black and white. It wasn't really gory. It was. I mean, you knew what was happening, but it really wasn't gory. I mean, there was a great kill scene with the man thing, but it was good. It's an hour, not even an hour to watch, so it's certainly worth it. And it's a little comedy, it's a little horror, it's a little superhero. A lot of familiar faces in it. The British woman that was in the Nevers is in it, and she's good. And I hope to see them again in sort of the Marvel, the Dark Universe, when they sort of bring back Ghost Rider and incorporate Moon Knight and Blade and some of the others into the universe, either directly or in an ancillary way. But it was cool. What was the first movie that you said? Oh, The Batman. Okay. I feel a little bit like Drew, but maybe for different parts. I agree that the first 45 minutes to an hour was near perfect. And I went into this movie not really wanting to like it, and I really liked the first 45 minutes to an hour. It sort of went off the rails for me from then, but not consistently. Like, it was up and down. And I do feel like you, Drew, that I watched more than one movie, but I'm not even sure it was two movies. And it just repeated The Dark Knight. Fight Club. It was then there was the whole global warming thing, where it was the city walls because the city was underwater. All these Joker, all these agents of chaos just coming out of the woodwork answered his call. I mean, it just couldn't decide what it wanted to be, and like it could have ended like 4 times, and it should have, and it didn't. Batman's a dick. I mean, he's a shit to Alfred. He's a shit to Commissioner Gordon. He's a shit to Catwoman. He's a shit to everyone. And he's a really bad detective. And it was funny as shit when they pointed it out when the Penguin pointed out to them. You're supposed to be the 2 greatest detectives in the world. You're idiots. And Penguin basically said,
I like that scene.
I mean, it was great, but it just pointed out. I mean, he's so smart with everything, but he just missed the obvious. I don't know. I didn't like how the Riddler was just a nerd. I didn't like how he looked like someone who I knew in real life, who basically was someone who was pretending to be something they weren't and turned out to be a low-key criminal, federal felon at this point. So that was maybe a bad association for me. But I was disappointed in it, but I see why people liked it. I think that people invested too much that they had to like it because they thought so much of it. But I don't know. I think it was a largely forgettable movie. I mean, when people tell me that the score is terrific as the first thing you tell me about a movie, I'm out. I mean, music's great, but the music is supplemental. It's not the first thing you tell me. So anyway, it wasn't awful, but it was. I mean, it needed to be 45 minutes shorter, but also it needed to decide if it wanted to be The Dark Knight or a detective movie. I would have preferred a detective movie rather than, sort of a chaos movie.
Right. My number 5 is a dark horse movie for a movie of the year, or a horror movie of the year actually, is Barbarian, which I just remember. It just seems like every movie I went to always had that trailer, that Bullet Train trailer, and it looked good. I would always think this looks entertaining, and they're really pushing the shit out of this movie. But it was like really vague too. Like, it was a really vague trailer, and I just realized I think I might have said 2 different movie names or whatever.
You did. You said Bullet Train and Barbarian. I'm not sure which one you're talking about now.
Bullet Train and Barbarian were movies that, come to think of it, were trailers that I would see in every movie leading up to when the movie came out. So, and then I was hearing good things about Barbarian, so I was like, I'll go watch it because it sounds like it's getting good press. So I watched it and I was just blown away because it's a movie that very much deceived its audience, where they made you believe that, spoiler alert, that what's his name, Skarsgård was the bad guy, and like the first 45 minutes is the audience having that tension of like, what's going to happen, who's the bad guy, is it Skarsgård? Is it the girl? Who is it? And you watch it, and I just remember being in the theater, and when that big twist happens, I got scared, but not like, oh, what the, like, holy fuck, screaming type of scare. It was more just like, it felt like someone grabbed me and was like shaking me type of scared. And I just yelled, fuck me. Like I just yelled that like really loud in the theater. And immediately they just transition into another shot. And it's like a very upbeat shot with Justin Long. I'm like, the director's like, okay, are you done being scared? All right, move on to the next scene. So this is a dark horse for, a really good horror movie. I liked it. I can't say enough about it. I thought it was a really strong, choice for a great horror movie. Let me kind of make a change to something. So I'm going to bump out X. Not to say that X was a bad movie, but I'm going to bump out X. I'm going to put Bullet Train in, my top 10. Another movie that was, pushed heavily. Like, and it looked entertaining. Again, it looked entertaining in the trailers. We're going to watch it regardless, and we enjoy the shit out of it because, Brad Pitt kind of played this kind of neurotic, bumbling hitman that doesn't really want to kill everybody, but he somehow manages to end up killing people, and he hates that.
He's like a Buddhist hitman.
Pretty much. And then you have, Brian Tyree Henry, from Atlanta, which we both like that show, and he's a guy that's...
Is he really British?
No, he's American.
He was acting British in that movie.
Yeah, he just
that's amazing. Really I'm not sure which is more amazing, how he acted British or if he was British acting, American.
He's just that good of an actor. Like, he's just one of those actors like Margot Robbie who's just, he's in everything. And, he's just really talented. And I don't think I've ever liked Aaron Taylor Johnson in a role more than this movie. Like, him and Brian Pietro. Oh,
yeah. He was the partner.
Tangerine.
Brian.
Tangerine
and Lemon, right.
Like, they have really good chemistry in the movie, and I want to see a spinoff of them. Like, that's how much I really like them in this role. And everybody else did great. It's just a really stacked cast of actors, and this kind of had a Tarantino feel to it. Like, anytime anyone appeared on screen, you would see their background, and I really dug that. I guess my only knock on the movie is that I don't know. I like Zazie Beetz a lot, and I just kind of wish she was in the movie a lot more. I just like when she came out, she's just calling Brad Pitt a bitch. Like, she's saying, "Bitch, I'm gonna kill you, bitch." I thought that was funny as shit. And then Channing Tatum came out for a little bit, and he's gay, but he's not really gay, or I don't know what his character is. And it's a really good movie, Bullet Train. Check it out. It's a fun movie. You'll love it.
So I think you have one more in your trilogy.
Oh no, I have.
Unless you want to take a break and then turn it over to me.
I have 4 more after this. I can just breeze through these. So, another horror movie. My next 2 are horror movies. Black Phone with Ethan Hawke, and I think you said you liked this. The Ethan Hawke is billed as a star, which he's the star. He's Ethan Hawke, but the 2 kids in it I thought were really good. And usually in horror movies, there's either really good kid actors or there's really bad kid actors. In this case, the 2 kid actors are really good. Like, they were really fucking good. Especially the boy. He really brought it. He carried it. He carried this movie. In scenes where Ethan Hawke wasn't. Well, technically, Ethan Hawke, you never really saw his face until the end of the movie. But the kid actor I thought was really good. The girl actor I thought was very charming and funny. And it's a horror movie, but it's not like... It felt like a really cheap horror movie because there really wasn't any CGI. I mean, I guess...
His brother was Ziggy from The Wire, season 2.
Him I like. I like that actor. And I kind of wish he was in the movie.
I think his name is James Ransom. He's in a lot of sort of like horror movies, like with small parts. I think he might be a producer or director or something.
He was in Sinister, which happened to have Ethan Hawke and the same director, and he was also in It. He played the grown-up version of Eddie in It.
Mm-hmm.
So him I like. He's a good actor. He's very funny. Like, he's funny without trying to be funny, because he just has that kind of like personality.
He's like a Steve Buscemi. He doesn't look like you should take him seriously.
Right. So I kind of wish he was in this movie a lot more, because he just came out and then he just left. So I'm like, okay. But I enjoy this movie. It was a movie that they really hyped it up, and it lived up to the hype. And I like the ending. A lot of horror movies usually don't know how to stick the landing. This movie stuck the landing. Like, it had a really good ending. So I enjoyed it, and I know you and me talked about it, and we kind of agreed that we would like to see maybe a spin-off or a prequel with the mom.
I don't want you to breeze through your next three, because I want to talk about these three movies, because this is going to be a rare arc where you and I agree. Barbarian was terrific. It was unexpected. There was that twist, which was great. There was unlike the Batman, where it felt like there were a bunch of different movies and they didn't really intend it. It was definitely a movie within this movie, and they absolutely intended it. I mean, it was so abrupt. I'm like, what the hell just happened? What is going on here? And then the way they tied it together, it was great. And then the guy who's, you think he's going for his redemption, turns out he's the guy he always was all the time, and you realize whatever he was accused of, he probably did. But he's not even really the villain. I mean, he's just a not a great guy who's in the movie who keeps on failing. But if I was to nitpick, my nitpick is that if you are just, live underground and fed mother's milk or breast milk, that you're probably not going to become a super strong, super powered thing. But it's a horror movie, so that's nitpicking. But this was a really surprising movie, and I really enjoyed it, and it was scary, but but it was good. It was just well done, and all the acting was good. And you're right, you didn't know who was good or who was bad. You thought maybe the homeless guy, is he bad? And he wasn't. And then you think that he's going to be a hero. He's going to be John Connor, but no. So Barbarian, really good movie. Bullet Train. I didn't know what to expect. I had no interest in seeing this in the theater, but when it came on HBO Max or Netflix or whatever it showed up on, I'll check it out. Usually when a first-run movie comes to Netflix after 5 weeks, that's usually a really bad sign. So I had no expectations. This movie was a shit ton of fun. What a cast. Crazy-ass plot. It was very much like Quentin Tarantino met Robert Rodriguez, and they decided to make a movie together, but they said, hey, Jerry Bruckheimer, you need to make it crazy. And it was crazy, but it worked. Every part of it worked. This was what a pleasant surprise. Black Phone, I don't even think it was a horror movie. I think it was a psychological thriller. To me, horror is when the horror is the star. I don't think the horror was the star in this. I think the boy was the star. There was definitely a supernatural element to it. This is an unimportant distinction, whether it's a horror movie or a thriller. It's was The Sixth Sense a horror movie or wasn't it? It doesn't matter. I thought this was a very good movie. It captured... I think it took place in 1979. It was it was every bit as authentic as season 1 of Stranger Things was such a surprise with the authenticity, the way it felt like a Spielberg movie from 82, the way the kids acted, how they were so, they were a storm. This kid was great. This was I don't think any part of this movie is just whoa, this is awesome. But the whole movie was just rock solid. It was just a really good movie. And yeah, I definitely have an interest in exploring the mother story more after this, and hopefully they'll do it. And Blumhouse, which made this movie, they have a really sort of a spotty record. They're known more as a spit out quantity, not necessarily quality, and occasionally they get lucky, but this was good. This was a real solid flick. So there's 3 that you and I agree on, and I'm famously persnickety, and you're famously generous. So when the 2 of us agree on things, I think there's a pretty good chance that 98% of the people out there will like it.
I think for me, it's just, again, with everything, with wrestling, with any type of like media, we're all going to have different. We all look at things in a different lens. You know, like you just said. What was the word you just used? Persnickety.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, like you're not always going to think everything I like is amazing, and I'm not always going to think everything you like is amazing. That's fine. Like, you know, it's going to be boring if we like the same thing. You know, we're going to, even if we like things, we're going to find things about the things we like different and the things we didn't like different, if that makes sense.
So I'm reading the description here. It says Crossover 2. So that's the name of the show, is Crossover 2 Electric Drugaloo.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So let me get my top three, and
go for it.
We're probably going to disagree on this. So my third movie is another horror movie, and this came out on Hulu like a fresh. Well, it was Prey, which was the Predator prequel. Try saying that really fast. I was not the biggest Predator fan. Not even to say that I hated it. I mean, the first one's a classic. Part 2 I thought was goofy, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah. And this was, I don't know, something about this movie just did it for me. Like, I like authenticity. And if you watch the movie on Hulu, there's actually 2 versions where you can watch it. You can watch it in like English, and you can watch it in the actual language that they use in that the native people are portrayed as. And they actually have Native American actors playing the role. And I don't know. I like authenticity. So this movie was just, to me, it's an easy watch. It's like, I think it's like an hour and a half, maybe like an hour 40. And it's just so easy to get through. And, you know, the girl in it, I think her name is Amber Midthunder. She's great. She's amazing. The brother I liked. And I like when movies do things that are not expected, because, you know, most movies would have done the whole, she's a woman, how is a woman gonna do this, because a woman is only supposed to do, like, this was more just like, you know, the brother being, you know, you're my little sister and I'm your big brother, I want to look out for you, I don't want you to get hurt. Like, that
stop with aliens. Didn't that, she's a woman, didn't aliens sort of settle that?
I don't know, just you know how cliche movies can be, but like, I like this movie. I really liked it. I liked it wasn't really a horror movie, it was more of an action movie, but it had horror elements to it. Like, there are definitely some like, oh shit moments. And there are times where you were actually rooting for the Predator. But of course you were rooting for the white meat babyface, which was, you know, the main actress. And I can't talk about how much I can't talk about it enough how much I really enjoy this movie. It was the perfect mix of action and horror, and the acting, and also the relationship with the brother and the sister. I dug that, you know, because it reminded me of my sister. So, you know, check this out if you haven't already. It's on Hulu. It's 90 minutes. And my second favorite movie of the year. You said you haven't seen it. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Again, just, I can't really say too much about it because, you know, Jeff hasn't seen it, but it's
say too much about it. I haven't seen Prey either.
But I'm not gonna spoil it. But like, it I already talked about it, but I'll just like give a brief summary.
Movie's out for 2 months. You don't worry about spoilers. I'm not that way.
Well, I don't want to be a dick, but anyway, it's very much an emotional experience because, you know, obviously we already know the main actor, you know, is gone. He was, you know, he left us 2 years ago. So a lot of the movie is about honoring both the actor and the main character, which is T'Challa, Black Panther. And the movie, they do something where in the beginning they're like, you know, you gotta face this. You gotta deal with the fact that he's not here. And I saw it with Betty twice, and I saw it with my sister and her husband on her birthday. And I was like, all right, there's no way this movie's gonna get me again. And the beginning, you know, it happens, and I'm just like, fuck. Like, are you kidding me? And I just hear my sister go, damn, you were right. So I like the movie. You know, Namor is great. They have a perfect antagonist. He's an antagonist, not a villain, and there's a difference. Kind of like Killmonger, where you understand his grief, you understand what his issue is, but he at the end of the day he's going about it the wrong way. Everybody in this movie shines. Angela Bassett shines because she's Angela fucking Bassett. What's her name? Letitia Shuri. She has an impossible feat of filling in the shoes that Chadwick left, and she knocks it out of the fucking park. So and I was poo-pooing over the fact that if she's going to be Black Panther, I don't know if she can pull it off, and she pulled it off. So good for her. Letitia Wright, that's her name. Everybody else in this movie steps it up. Okoye steps it up. Like I mentioned, Angela Bassett fucking owns every scene that she's in. M'Baku, every scene that he's in becomes his scene, and he's in the movie not too long, but he's great. And then just upon watching the movie for the third time, I realized maybe this movie shouldn't have been 2.5 hours. It probably could have just been like an even 2 hours. But I still enjoyed the movie. So that's my number 2. Give me 1 second. I need to go get something out of the room.
Okay. I will just tell the audience, I did not see Prey. I did not see Black Panther, Wakanda Forever yet. I love the MCU, or I did, but I'm a little bit burnt out on superhero movies. And I also figure that, so I thought that Disney might drop it as a Christmas present, or at least New Year's. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but I'm sure it'll be on Disney Plus within the next month, and I'll see it. Looking forward to seeing it, but any movie that's 2.5 hours, I'd rather see at home so I can pause it 2 or 3 times. And that's just that's because I'm old. Prey, I absolutely want to see, but I don't have Hulu, and I'm not buying another subscription service, so I'll wait till these services merge, or until they license it to someone else.
I was gonna say, why don't you get the Disney bundle?
Yeah, not interested.
Well, I mean, you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for like $10.
I get Disney for $10. I don't know how I can get them both for $10, but anyway, I'm okay with waiting. It's like I feel like there's a never-ending stream of new things out there, and when you, as you know, when you do wrestling podcasts, but like I cover all wrestling, like there's like 9,000 hours of wrestling a week, and plus you're doing the podcast, and I've been having to cover like all the PWC shows for the last several months, so it's like sort of never ending. So I'm okay with waiting. I'm all set.
I mean, if you want, I can give you my Hulu.
It's okay,
dude. I'm offering you my Hulu password. What? Just come on.
I'm telling you, I'm all set. It's cool. It's good. I'm perfectly content with waiting for it to drop, somewhere else, and it will. It'll be somewhere else soon. There's a certain thing that comes with age where you're no longer waiting for every movie to come out in the theater, and once you get there and you get past the first waiting period, you're still getting the movies, the new content, in the same increment of time. It's just you're waiting longer than the theaters. But with some of them these days, you don't have to wait. Like the Batman was on HBO Max like 4 weeks after it was in the theaters. I mean, I mean, Black Adam I just saw. It wasn't very good, but it just came out like 6 or 7 weeks ago. It's not even a thing, because I would probably wait that long to see a new movie anyway. So it's all good. I mean, there's always new movies and new surprises, and then I'll check out something that maybe I wasn't inclined to see, like a Dunkirk or a 1919 or whatever it was, 1921 or whatever, and I've been binging on some, when I have free time, I'll watch like an old horror movie or something that maybe I hadn't seen before, or I'll check out some, crazy Norwegian, like a silly monster movie like Troll or whatever, and it's all good. I'm fine. I'm cool. But you know what? If I ever get antsy, I will hit you up and I will take you up on it. I appreciate the offer. That's very generous.
All right, well, I mean, it's no skin off my back, but
I know, you're a swell fella.
I am. I'm very swell.
What the fuck is a Jeff? Somebody put in the chat, what the fuck is a Jeff? That's a really good question.
What the fuck is it, Jeff? But my number one, I'm pretty sure you already know what it is. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once, starring the amazing Michelle Yeoh. This is a movie I dug. This is a movie when I saw the trailer, I went, that looks interesting. And then the hype of people just saying you must see this movie. And again, we're kind of the same when it comes to like people saying you must see this. Like you must. And not most of the time, we're just going to think it's just okay. But, I watched it. I enjoyed it. I just thought it was, from the beginning, you're already hooked in. And it just had a story that was relatable. Like, it had great acting, had a great story, and it was just a perfect mix of, it was a drama, then it was sci-fi, then it was action, then it was comedy, then it was romance, then it was this, that, and the other thing. And like, when you're able to mix so many genres all in at once, and then it works, the right people can pull it off. Very, very few people can pull that off all in one movie, because, like, for example, there's a scene where, I'll give a little bit away, but like, there's a scene where the daughter, Michelle Yeoh's daughter, she comes in and she just starts changing the environment. Like, she goes from being a fucking like luchador wrestler to all of a sudden, she's beating the fuck out of somebody with a dildo, and I'm like, what is this movie? And it definitely gets you right in the feels. It's very much a dramatic movie about, family, and, not all families are perfect, but, family at the end of the day is going to be there for you more than anyone else. So
you liked this movie more than I did. I did not dislike it. Just everyone was raving about it. It's interesting, it's different, it's unique, so I definitely think everyone should see it. It's free on most cable systems at this point. It had two things that I don't like. One, if anyone's ever seen like sort of the kung fu movies out of Hong Kong from the 70s and into the 80s, and it still perpetuates like the silliness of the Asian humor, almost like making fun of themselves. This had a lot of that. Right. Also, the science fiction element, there was a lot of British science fiction elements where there's multiverses and then there's some absurdities like a giant poppy seed bagel and things like that. I don't like British science fiction. Like, I didn't like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've tried to read a whole bunch of British science fiction. There's very little that I like. It always has too many levels for me. Like, Loki is the closest thing to British science fiction that I like in pop culture, because Loki was very much a British science fiction show. Like, I don't like Doctor Who. So, like, it had those two elements of things that I don't like in it, which made it hard for me to really embrace it. But, like, Jamie Lee Curtis's character was an interesting surprise. But there were other things I hated, like the hot dog hand thing, the hot dog finger stuff. That was just all stupid to me. That's very British science fiction-y. The convenience of one family being so operative to the multiverse. But of course, that's the whole point of the story, because it's about family. So of course, every member of the family is pivotal to this. So, I mean, it's not like I didn't like it. I'm just very glad I saw it at home so I could watch it over, 2 or 3 days. I think if I had to watch it in one sitting, it would have been very difficult for me. But a lot of people loved it, so I would tell everyone to go see it, because most people seem to love it. I liked it, I just didn't love it. Again, for the reason I said, there were two aspects of it which are both cliche, and I don't like either, or tropes, and I don't like either of those.
All right, fair enough. Let me get to my least favorite. I'll kind of breeze through these because I have to leave somewhere in a bit. So my least favorite, and again, these movies weren't exactly terrible. It was just a mixture of movies that I didn't think were all that great, and I had high hopes for them, and they ended up just being either okay or bad. So, and like my previous list, I'm going to bump out a movie, because when I made this list, I probably should have been more thorough of which movies did I really not like. So I put in Don't Worry Darling as my 10th, and I didn't think the movie was terrible, so to speak. Like, to me, this is just how I felt. Any scene that didn't have Florence Pugh in it wasn't interesting. Maybe it's because I'm biased on like Florence Pugh, but it's just like anytime she was in a scene, it was always interesting. Anytime it was somebody else like Harry Styles, I didn't find anything he did or said to be that interesting. And Chris Pine, you already knew right off the bat that he was a villain, so I'm gonna bump that out of my top 10. I'm gonna place the Hellraiser reboot on Hulu. I didn't think that was all that great, and granted, I wasn't the biggest Hellraiser fan, but kind of like Predator, I decided to give it a chance. Maybe this will change my mind. Not really. I mean, the first Hellraiser I thought was good. I didn't think it was great. Like, that type of movie
I
where it's just like
love the first Hellraiser.
Where it's just like balls to the wall violence and uncomfortable body horror I'm not a fan of, but decided to give this a chance, and I just thought it was boring, personally.
The Hellraiser sequels, though, the Hellraiser universe have been, I mean, they've been pretty bad to the point that I don't think I saw anything past 3.
I know Henry Cavill was in one of them.
He wasn't Henry Cavill then. You know.
He was just Henry.
Right.
But
it was Hank
Cavill.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we talked about this where I mentioned how like the biggest selling point to me of this, Hellraiser reboot was that, Hellraiser's going to be played by a transgender woman. Yeah, it's like, okay, but is the movie going to be good? But it's played by a transgendered woman. Yeah.
Yeah, but she's a Cenobite demon from hell. Gender is not important. I mean, it's completely irrelevant. It's a demon. But anyway, I didn't see this. Yes, obviously by now everyone knows I don't have Hulu. I'll probably see this, in 8 months' time. Probably 2 months after I see Prey.
Right, and it's just we talked about this where it's just like
nobody said they liked this movie. This movie has pretty much been universally panned.
I mean, I saw some people like it, but I think Draper kind of said it was okay, but it was just bleh. But like,
it's like 80-20. It's like 80-20 against.
Well, I know Lightning's bringing up like in the book that Hellraiser was described as having more of a feminine appearance, but just like you said, like he's a Cenobite from hell, or it's a Cenobite from hell, so it doesn't really have a gender, but it kind of looks like a woman.
Yeah, fine. I mean, a lot of the angels were described feminine in some descriptions, and they weren't in others. It's just like I just don't, to me it does. I mean, listen, if it's an achievement that the actor got a role that they wouldn't normally get or wouldn't have gotten 5 years ago in what was considered a high-profile role, great, that's terrific. Everybody should have opportunities. It's swell. I'm just not. That's not a reason for me to see a movie or to not see a movie.
Right. Next on my list is Uncharted, which I'm not going to spend too much time on. It was just... Here's the thing. I mean, I like the game. I was a big fan of the game, so when I saw the trailer for this, I was setting myself up for disappointment. I'm like, all right, this is either going to be just a fun popcorn flick or it's just going to be bad. And I went in this with the mindset of like, let me try to enjoy it as a movie. As a movie, if you've never heard of the games, it's a popcorn flick. That's the best way to describe it. And I like Tom Holland, but then I couldn't help but I really couldn't help but compare it to the games. And the best, I know you're not a video game guy, but like the best way to describe the games is it's like Indiana Jones for a new generation.
Right. I get it. Yeah, I get the concept of it, and there really wasn't much chemistry between him and Wahlberg either. I mean, it never felt like they liked each other.
Right. And it's just like, I'll describe the characters in the game. So like Nathan Drake, who Tom Holland plays, is like he's like Nathan Fillion. Any role that Nathan Fillion has ever played. Like he's a shit talker, he's also charming, but you also get the impression that this is a guy you don't want to fuck with. Like you can tell he's killed some. You could tell he's killed some motherfuckers. So, and then the character that Mark Wahlberg plays is Sully, who's kind of like he's very suave and cool. Like he's a guy you want to hang out with. Like
you know, they were trying to go for George Clooney and Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11, and they failed largely on the George Clooney part. I think Tom Holland was fine, but when the chemistry is wrong, it just doesn't feel right. But you're right. It was like Red Notice, you know, that rock movie. It's just like you see it, you watch popcorn, it's fine. It was free, whatever. But like it's eminently forgettable.
Here's the thing. I love Tom Holland, but Tom Holland was wrong for this role. Like, this is not a role that Tom Holland should have. This should have been somebody else. So,
probably, or Mark Wahlberg should have been somebody else.
Well, actually, they had they greenlit this movie over a decade ago, and they actually chose Mark Wahlberg to play the role. But over time,
Doesn't mean they got it right.
This movie,
you know who I think would have played the Mark Wahlberg role right and would have been better for it? Chris Evans.
Well, no, what I was trying to say was, like, this movie was in developmental hell, you know, for a long time, and Mark Wahlberg got too old for the role, but they still decided to keep him, like, in the movie somehow. But you said Chris Evans as Tom Holland's role?
No, as Mark Wahlberg's role.
No. I mean, I like Chris Evans, but no, that's, again, another thing of, like, you're choosing a good actor, but it's the wrong role.
I think you could have someone that's charming and swarmy at the same time.
I'd rather have Chris Evans as Nathan Drake. Like, if I'm thinking of a Nathan Drake, Chris Evans.
I mean, young Chris Evans, sure, but he's too old now for that.
Well, I mean, when the game begins, Nathan Drake is already, like, well into his, like, career as, you know, being a thief.
Yeah, but it's not the game. This is a movie, and the movie is like there's supposed to be a generation between the two of them.
I don't know. My point is they screwed up the concept. And if you're gonna go for Nathan Drake in the game, I don't know. Let's move on.
Yeah, the movie isn't worth this much conversation.
I know. I said I wasn't gonna spend too much time, but we spent like almost 5 minutes. But next is Nope. I didn't like this movie as much as I wanted to. Going back to what I was mentioning earlier about, you know, the Batman, it felt like I was watching 2 movies. Or, actually with this movie, I didn't know what I was watching, because it was being billed as a horror movie. And then you watch it and it's like, this is science fiction. And it's not really scary. Like, there is definitely a oh shit moment in one moment in the movie. But overall, it's just like, I like Daniel Kaluuya. I think he's a good actor. But in this movie, I felt like they wasted him. Like, he was kind of wooden in this movie.
I want to interject on 2 of the movies. I really like Don't Worry, Darling. I thought it was an interesting combination of movies. It was a surprise. I had no idea what it was about. I don't dislike Florence Pugh, but I don't feel the same way that you do about her. I thought the movie was really interesting. I don't know if I saw it in the theater I would have liked it as much, but I think that I would have. It was sort of it had parts of The Matrix in it, it had parts of the Truman Show, it had parts of Vanilla Sky, it had I don't know, it just had, you know, you had the campy 50s acting, almost like, you know, the Goodfellas, you know, stuff. I just thought I thought it was good and interesting. And which is the other movie Nope. I like Nope more than I thought it was, and I do think it's a horror movie. Yes, there's science fiction elements in it, but I think it's a horror movie like Jaws is a horror movie. And no, it wasn't particularly scary, but it was suspenseful. And again, the horror was the star of the movie. I don't think it was perfect, but I thought that, you know, it was a long, slow burn. It was very much a late 70s, early 80s paced movie, and I thought it was well done, and I think that you weren't really supposed to know what to expect. And there was weird, like Barbarian, there were things like you know, I really never put together what was the big deal about the child actor stuff and the chimpanzee that went crazy, and some of the things didn't have much to do with it, or they did on a level that was only superficial, but I still thought it was interesting. So I really liked Nope, and I really liked Don't. A little bit of divergence there between us.
Here's the thing: I like the scene with the child star and the monkey that killed everybody. I thought that was interesting, and then after that, they just left it. They're okay. Back to the movie. It's like, what? So I don't know.
Yeah, but the whole thing was about how what is that the dude from Walking Dead? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know actors' real names.
Stephen Yeun.
Yeah, the whole thing was about his relationship with animals and animals as monsters, and like his whole life was about trying to overcome that. That's the source of his fame, but it's also the source of him being like sort of like a carnival barker in the middle of nowhere. And now he's got a chance to do it again, and he desperately, wants to capitalize on it, and and it swallows him whole. It's almost like Moby Dick. It's almost like a mini Melvillian story in the middle of this other story.
Next movie on the list, Thor: Love and Thunder. This one of two Marvel movies on this list. I'm pretty sure you know what the other one is, but we again, another movie I don't want to spend too much time on. This was just bad, an all around bad movie.
Very disappointing.
A waste of Christian Bale, and it's just they regressed. They ruined the character of Thor. They regressed Thor. They made Thor look like a fucking moron.
Idiot. A waste of everything. Even the Guardians did. I mean, all of it felt bad. I don't even remember what the post credits scene was.
It was there was two. There was one where Jane goes to Valhalla, and she sees Idris Elba's character, and then the other scene is introducing Hercules.
Oh, right, who's skinny. I mean, how the fuck do you pick a thin Hercules? Come on, man. The fuck? I mean, there's only one character trait you're looking for in Hercules.
I don't know. I don't write this shit. Next movie, The Northman. Just very bland, very just nothing movie. Just the beginning was interesting. After which it dragged on a lot.
Agree 100%. Stylized Conan the Barbarian. Thor: Love and Thunder and the Northman are my two biggest disappointments of the year, because I expected so much from both of them.
Next movie is a movie I saw basically on a whim. Crimes of the Future. This was a Cronenberg movie, and I'm gonna be honest. This might upset people. I think Cronenberg's a little overrated as a director. Like, I know people in the horror community, people we're friends with, will say Cronenberg is a genius. I've seen two Cronenberg, well, including this one, 3 Cronenberg movies. One of them being Scanners, which every horror movie list of people saying that Scanners is amazing. You have to watch Scanners and yada yada yada. And
it is amazing, but it's amazing for 1982.
I watched Scanners, and I was actually, it was a mixture of me getting bored and laughing, because it was like this. It was like the South Park episode where Cartman thinks he's a psychic, and then he meets other psychics, and they're doing the like. It's like they obviously based off of Scanners.
Yeah. Scanners should be redone and modernized. I mean, but during the time, this was right after sort of the CIA, all of the, psychic abilities tests were public, and that was this was like our first conspiracy era, where this sort of came in on the I don't know, on the tail of that. But Scanners for its time was great, but yeah, I'm not sure it would hold up. Making me sad. Lightning, I don't understand what you mean when you say damn 40 years ago. Oh, Scanners, yeah. It was probably, listen, I don't know if it was 1982, if it was 1980 or 1984, but it was around that time. I was definitely in junior high or early high school. I graduated high school in 86.
Yeah, Crimes of the Future. I watched this early in the day. I watched this at 12 p.m. and I was literally the only one in the theater. And I was sitting at the top, and the whole time I'm just tweeting, talking shit about this movie, because it was boring. It wasn't good. I still can't even tell you what the plot is, to be honest. That's how boring the movie was, and just it wasn't very good. Viggo Mortensen's in it, Kristen Stewart's in it, so that's all I can really tell you about it. Um,
I didn't know Viggo Mortensen was still active.
he still acts. He does he does indie films. After he got his Lord of the Rings money, he's like, I'm good. I'm just gonna do indie shit. Number 4.
I knew he was in some things. I mean, I know he was in The Road, and I know he pops up every now and then. But yeah, I thought he was mostly sort of disappeared.
Number 4 is a movie that not you, but like our good friends that we know, who I'm pretty sure people are going to know who we're talking about. They love this movie. They swore up and down about this movie. They said it was the best horror movie of the year. And it's Men. It's a movie that John Draper and our friend Shaheen just like took 8 inches of, and just talking about how great this movie was and that it was original quote unquote cinema. And the movie made me angry. And not because it's a movie about toxic masculinity. It made me angry because it was bad. Like, I didn't
Angry Drew is sexy.
Oh, it is. It's very sexy. You should see when I get furious. I didn't get it. I didn't understand the movie. I didn't understand the plot. I didn't understand the characters. They really didn't explain why everything was happening the way it was. The ending was stupid as fuck. It had that typical independent horror movie ending that is fucking stupid. And I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of synthesizers in horror movies. I'm getting tired of random silhouettes in horror movies. Like, I need horror movies that will explain to me what the fuck is going on, without feeling like the director is nudging me and going, "Huh? Did you get it? Huh? And it's just, no, I don't get it. This is fucking stupid. This is a bad movie, and it's just, it was a bad movie. It was horrible.
I did not see it, so I can't add anything to it. I will see it one day. Like, I'll see that and Pearl when they're no longer pay-per-view, when they're just on free service.
My next movie is another Marvel movie. I mean, Marvel adjacent. Morbius, starring. What?
So bad.
This was bad. You know what? This is the movie that made me change how I review movies, and I'll explain why. So, I've had this issue where I'll review movies right off the bat instead of taking time to marinate and think, okay, what did I like and what didn't I like? Whereas I watched Morbius, and it took me like maybe 2 hours to really realize this was a bad movie, because I tried to think about, what did I like? Is there anything I liked? No, there really isn't anything I liked. Because originally I was going to give it a C. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, this is a D+ movie. And then the more and more and more I thought about it, I'm like, there was nothing good about this movie. Like, you had Jared Leto, who was supposed to be an Oscar-winning actor, and he was wooden as fuck in this movie. Like, he had no personality, he was not charismatic, he wasn't funny. Like, at least make me laugh. Like, there was a reviewer who took his son to go see this movie, and his son had said to him, "Dad, as bad as this movie was, it should have been funny at least." And it wasn't funny. At least Thor: Love and Thunder made me laugh in certain parts. This movie just wasn't funny. Like, it was just bad. Like, B-A-D, bad. And it had a post-credit scene that was just terrible. Like, and I'll spoil it for everybody. I'm sorry, but...
Spoil it. Who cares? Nobody
I'm going to be a dick. So, this comes off the heels of No Way Home, where they're introducing the multiverse and the universe cracking open, and you have Spider-Man villains showing up. And the ending is they show Michael Keaton's character from, Homecoming as the Vulture showing up in Morbius's universe in prison. And because they don't have anything on him in their universe, they let him go. And then they show another post-credit scene or Morbius meets up in a random area in the desert, and then he sees Vulture. And it's Michael Keaton telling, Morbius, "Hey, the real villain is Spider-Man. I think we should find a few guys, that we can team up with that might do some good." And then Morbius going, "That's intriguing, ? That's the ending.
Right. Yeah. This movie was really bad. it is sort of interesting how they're pulling certain characters, keeping them in one universe and taking them out of another. Like Venom might live in both worlds. You might have the Tom Hardy Venom in the Sony, this one with Mobius and Vulture. But they left the door open for there being a new Venom in the MCU, which I think is cool as fuck, because I don't like Tom Hardy in this role. I didn't like either of the movies. The second one was terrible. The first one I thought was pretty darn bad. But like Black Adam bad, not like, like Green Lantern bad, but I thought the second one was like, oh my god, I thought that was almost Mobius bad. Anyway, what I didn't understand about the Vulture is, how did he get his Vulture suit? Like, he just somehow knew how to go to a Stark place and build all the stuff and build a new Vulture suit. I mean, they release him and he's got no money or assets. Because he has no identity, but he can still find a Vulture suit. I mean, give me some of those letters from A to Z. I mean, fill it in for me a little bit. And yes, I thought the Venom movies were horrendous. And the second one was giantly horrendous. I don't find it funny or clever or anything like that. Anyway, Mobius was just bad. I had no expectations for it, but it was just bad.
Okay, here's the thing about my next two. So I said I bumped out a movie, and that was Don't Worry, Darling, which I didn't think was terrible. I like Florence Pugh, and I just thought when she wasn't in a scene, it wasn't that interesting. So my next two, I'm not even going to give number one I'm not even going to put number one in my list, because I didn't. Okay, let me just get to it. So number two, which I'll probably make my number one, was Halloween Ends, and we talked about that movie ad nauseum, and it was just bad. Like, you can't really. I don't think we can emphasize how bad the movie was. Like, the first movie, which came out in 2018, which was, the Halloween sequel from the first movie in 1978, I liked it. It was what I wanted it to be. It wasn't like the Rob Zombie movies where it was just like over the top, hyper violence. It was like, we're going to build everything off of tension, and what you don't see is more horrible. Whereas the second one that came out, the Halloween Kills, decided to undo all of that and just, do balls to the wall violence and just make everyone stupid. And they do the mob mentality of like, everyone is scared and they're pissed off, so let's just make them stupid and ignorant, which can work, but it's just like, at the end of the day, you made everyone stupid. And then Halloween Ends is just, it felt like everybody was a cartoon version of themselves. Like, it had an interesting beginning, like when the kid died, when the kid just unceremoniously died. And I'm like, all right, he was kind of a dick, so fuck him. He deserves to die. But it's just, the whole thing with the kid, that Corey, is just, a lot of the movie was just, it felt like I was watching two different movies. I didn't know if I was watching a romance or if I was watching a Halloween. And like, Halloween barely began in like the last 30 minutes of the movie. And
they absolutely had a whole bunch of ideas for a movie in this one and connected almost none of them together.
Yeah, it's just, and like the movie felt unintentionally funny when it was trying to be serious.
Right.
Like the scene where Michael and the kid are like wrestling around on the ground and he takes his mask off.
Right.
I was just like, was that supposed to be funny? And
Michael can beat off 20 people, but he's wrestling with this kid. Come on.
Like, and I forgot what else I was going to say. Like, the scenes where, like, they kept doing the cliche movie thing of anytime somebody's looking for somebody, they just happen to be there. Like,
yeah. There were times when Jamie Lee Curtis was, like, almost like supernatural or tough, badass, like Linda Hamilton in some of the later Terminator movies. And then there was other times where she was like the ultimate hapless damsel in distress. I didn't like any of the new three movies. I thought that the first one, the new Halloween, was pretty bad. on every level. I thought the second one was a bad movie, but at least the violence was pretty good. But then Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out with the renewal, which was also like a pretty dopey movie, but it didn't try to be anything else, and it had the same level of violence, so that eclipsed the Halloween Kills violence. But Halloween Kills at least had some good violence for me, and gore and whatever, and some of the kills were fun, and but the movie was dopey. This movie was just bad on every level, and I hope that this really means Halloween ends. It just start over. It was it was just no good.
Right, and it's done after this, so no more. My number one, I don't even know if I should make it my number one because I'm not even gonna count it as a movie because it was a movie that you knew was gonna be bad. So I'm just gonna have it in my honorary mentions. That was Jeepers Creepers Reborn, and technically, I watched somebody else watch this movie. Like there's a channel called EcoMog on YouTube. They're fun. They're funny guys. You should check them out. And they review TV shows. They review movies and trailer reactions. And they watched this movie, and I just watched it because I wanted to see how bad it was going to be. And it was just funny seeing their reactions because like anytime anyone had dialogue or said anything or just did anything somebody could just say hello, how are you? And it was bad dialogue. And it was a bad movie. Like it was comical because the acting was bad. Nobody had chemistry. Even like when they were outside, it looked like it was CGI. So I'm like, could they not afford to like film on location? Like it was just, and I mean, we know the story behind the original Jeepers Creepers. The director was a piece of shit and hurt children. So they wanted to reboot it, and it's just, how is it that no big studio wanted to do Jeepers Creepers? And I can see why. So this is a terrible movie. I can't really say anything else about it. It's just bad. You can watch the trailer and decide for yourself, but it's bad. It's BAD bad. And again, they do the typical horror shit of like, oh, I am safe from the monster. I hope the monster does not come out and get me. And 3, 2, 1, blah. It's just every scene. It's comical. So those are my least favorite movies of the year.
Well, I didn't see Jeepers Creepers, so there's another one I can't comment on. But I would say that just because of the disappointment factor, Thor: Love and Thunder and The Northman were my two biggest disappointments. I'm not sure if The Green Knight was this year or not, but I really didn't like that at all. I know some people liked it.
Last year.
Okay. So, I don't know. I don't keep lists, and obviously my memory is faulty on this type of thing, but I would definitely recommend Bullet Train. That was just such a nice surprise. I hope that, like, somebody doesn't see it and, like, says, oh, that's not so good, because it's no longer a nice surprise. But I think it would hold up. I mean, I think that it's just enjoy. It's just like, it just sort of never stops. It's like fun the whole way through. I don't know. No, I would say it wasn't a great year for movies. I think that there's a little bit of people are saying there's a horror renaissance. Not sure that I really agree with that. I think there's just a lot of horror movies that were like okay and not terrible, and I think a lot of people are calling bad movies good and good movies great. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it, but I don't know. I think that there's a lot more interesting TV. Like, I thought that Yellow Jackets was a really interesting TV show, and that next season should be coming back soon, the season 2. That's a really cool show. I thought that The Old Man was a really well done and interesting show. There were other shows too. I mean, I love Succession. I thought on disappointments, I'm going to call House of Dragon my biggest television disappointment of the year. I mean, I really enjoyed Game of Thrones. This felt like someone made some crappy rip off of Game of Thrones. So,
I'll be quick about my choices for my favorite shows of the year. So, my favorite shows of the year were The Boys. The Boys season 3. I thought that was great from top to bottom. Wednesday I just watched and I loved it. I mean, you said you liked it too. You said it was almost perfect, and which is crazy that we agree on things. And I liked it. I can't really think of anything about the show I didn't like. So, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I only saw season 1 though, so I'm in a very limited universe.
Well, there's only one season. Better Call Saul.
What show is that?
Wednesday.
Oh yeah, Wednesday. I'm sorry. I thought you were still in The Boys. Yeah, no, Wednesday was delightful.
Better Call Saul. Great show. Just to me, I actually enjoyed it a lot more than Breaking Bad. Not to say that Breaking Bad is bad, but I like it because it does more for character building than Breaking Bad did. Because
It's different.
Yeah, Breaking Bad at the end of the day was more about the main characters, whereas this show, I find myself more interested when Saul is not on screen. Not to say, and it's not to take anything away from Bob Odenkirk. This is just like a personal preference. Like I was more interested in Mike's story and Gus's story and Nacho's story.
Well, he's a completely dislikable person. I mean, that's that's the thing. He's terrible. In a lovable way, he's the worst kind of con artist. But Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad they should be on anybody's list of top 20 TV shows of all time, and arguably they can be on anyone's list of top 5, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. So, that should be no surprise. Anyone who hasn't seen Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, you probably should, and I'm sure it's free somewhere.
It's on Netflix, but they don't have season 6. So for Better Call Saul.
Well, they will by the time you get done with 5 seasons. It will be.
Miss Marvel I enjoyed. We talked about that. We Own This City. It was on HBO. Is from the creators of The Wire. So if you like The Wire, you'll enjoy this show. Atlanta finished up. I enjoyed. I liked the first 2 seasons of Atlanta. Season 3 I thought was kind of all over the place. I enjoyed some of the short stories. And then season 4, I loved the episode where they were talking about the CEO of Disney, the fake CEO of Disney. I enjoyed that so much. I thought that was funny.
Atlanta, the first 2 seasons were great, but it was a linear story. Season 3, they sort of went all over the place, and obviously because of COVID, they sort of skipped they skipped the whole part of Paperboy like being a huge success. It just we enter upon season 3, and he's a huge success doing a European tour, and they had interesting, poignant sub stories in there, but it was a little all over the place. Season 4 was a combination of both. I mean, so I agree. Seasons 1 and 2 definitely the best, but there's so much genius in these shows that I strongly recommend all of the seasons. Just don't expect it to stay like a normal TV show after season 2. It's like season 1. I'll never forget where Paperboy goes to Ern, and Ern had just met Darius that first episode, and Paperboy goes, "Man, I hate Nigerians. Never trust a Nigerian." And Paperboy introduced Ern to Darius as Paperboy's trusted friend, and Ern's like, "Darius is Nigerian." He's like, "He is." It's just great. Like that shit. Just that's real. That's what happens in real life.
I like the episode in season 1 where Paperboy's on one of those Crossfire talk shows, and the whole time the whole subject is about Paperboy made a transphobic type of tweet, and he's trying to explain himself, and the other person in the conversation's kind of agreeing with him. And the host is trying to say, you're racist or you don't like women or something. And then he just all of a sudden I think he just goes off the tangent and just tells Paperboy, "You hate women." And then Paperboy just goes, "What the fuck?" And then just goes commercial. I just thought that was funny as shit. Next choice is Reacher on Prime. This is based more off the books, not like the Tom Cruise movies where he's, again, I like Tom Cruise, but it's he's 5'6". Why am I supposed to find him intimidating? So, Reacher, they bring in the dude that played, Hawk from Titans, and he was also Aquaman in Smallville. This is an enjoyable show because it seemed more based in reality. You have this big 6'5", off the farm motherfucker who looks like he can kill anybody with just by touching them. So it's an enjoyable show. It's I watched one episode, I was hooked. It's like eating, Pringles. You can't just have one chip. You have to have the whole freaking can. So Next is Peacemaker, with John Cena. That was the character he played in Suicide Squad. It was an enjoyable show. James Gunn is really good at his job. He's really good at making characters and creating dialogue. And you find yourself liking John Cena. You have likable characters on the show. And you have a great villain in Robert Patrick, who just somehow manages to play a villain so well. Another show is Winning Time, which, if you're a sports fan, you'll like this. This is about the Los Angeles Lakers when they drafted Magic Johnson. There's controversies because, a lot of the actual people didn't like how they were portrayed, which, take that for what you will. But it's an enjoyable show. It's on HBO. Pam and Tommy, that was on Hulu. That starred, again, Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan as Tommy Lee, and Lily James as Pamela Anderson. They had Seth Rogen, who was actually not the goofy, Seth Rogen. He was actually acting, and he actually did a pretty good job on this show. And this is about the infamous sex tape with Pam and Tommy. So this is a guilty pleasure. It's a good show. Last is, again, you and me had our different views. I like Stranger Things. I like the most recent season. I won't get too much into it, but I enjoyed it. These are my favorite shows of the whole year. I think I said 10. I think I put 11, but fuck it. But anyways, guys, I have to head out. I don't mean to rush you guys out, but I gotta head out in a bit. But we thank you guys for joining us for Christmas Eve, for taking your Christmas Eve day off to listen to us talk about our dislikes and likes, urban legends, and Jeff, you did a good job with your homework assignment. So bravo.
Thank you.
Jeff is the man. Jeff is the man at what he does.
I try. Thank you for that. For those of you who came in live, thank you for spending some of your Christmas Eve with us. I hope this was good for you. Those of you listening on the download, hope you enjoy it. Certainly check out more Drew's show. You can check out his Patreon shows. He's got like a whole cadre. He's got his own like Suicide Squad of people, and I'm one of them. I probably show up the least on the Patreon, but I'm there. And if you want to find me in other places, on Twitter, I'm at Icarus Fell MD. I'm on like all the PWC shows, which is PWC Network at podbean.com. And I do, those are mostly all wrestling podcasts. We recorded last week our end of year awards called the Peenies for PWC. There's also a running joke in the PWC. If you know, you know. And I think that's a great show. And hopefully Jimmy has put it up by now or will today, but it's pretty cool. Hammerlock Hangover is my other wrestling podcast with Big Daddy Cool Steve Pena. And that should be dropping. Talked about it earlier in the show. Did our predictions for next year, end of year awards, and graded ourselves on our predictions from last year, and covered the news and wrestling as well. Pretty long show. And then non-wrestling Garden of Doom and Garden Views, they're on the same feed. So if you subscribe to one, you get them both. Garden of Doom, I think between the two crossover shows, you got a pretty good feel for what the breadth and depth of Garden of Doom. I don't mean to toot my horn too much, but I've been doing this for 2.5 years with zero podcast experience, zero technology experience, zero tech aptitude, zero booking experience. And I've gone from just relying on sort of other podcasters and friends and people I knew from high school and college to having publishers send me books and getting guests that are, I'm not at the Graham Hancock level, but I'm like a step below, are some of my guests, and I have an extended family of repeat guests who, I've got people who are routinely on Gaia and Discovery and things like that, and I don't know, I don't quite know how I accomplished that. And on Garden Views, one of my recent guests, worked in the White House's cybersecurity office, and he's going to come on again. And Garden Views is more topical, often legal in nature. I have a little bit of a obsession with what's going to be the laws of space, and it turns out I'm not alone. And that show, and through the guests I had and the conversations I've had and my own journeys, I sort of got to where things are. And as a result, the Space Court Foundation, which is a not-for-profit, appointed me as a special advisor to their board of directors. And, I don't know, it's just sort of proud of myself, again, no experience, no booking, no nothing, and just by reaching out and putting out content there. And I don't know, I have a shaman who was a guest once, and he's been listening to the shows, and he DMs me. He goes, I love your show. It's a treasure trove of things that I'm curious about. And, if there's things that a shaman is curious about, then probably most of us are too. So I don't know. Mike Hilliard, who's got the Red Line podcast, he's been on my show twice. He's going to come on a third time. He gets 2 million downloads a month on his show, which comes out every other week. And I don't know. I just think that's really cool. I said I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm going full Arn Anderson on you, toot. So please check out those shows. Stick around, give them ratings, reviews. Tell people about it. It's definitely an algorithmically challenged show and benefits from word of mouth and personal referrals and things like that. So I do appreciate it. I appreciate Drew. I always say it. I don't mean to get sappy. I'm not sappy. But he has supported me before I even knew who he was. I mean, I heard the name, but he's always been supportive. And so I try to reciprocate as best I can. And it's a pleasure and a privilege being part of your cyber family, and I thank you for that, and look forward to more in 2023.
And thank you, of course, Jeff, without getting too sappy, and for supporting me, for sharing, for just being a good friend. And that's really all I want. That's all I want, is just to be for your friendship, and also, vice versa. And I'm glad I can.
So the sex can stop?
No, the sex cannot stop.
Oh, okay.
So you're just gonna have to deal with it. But
I need to reorder my Blue Chew.
What was that?
I need to reorder my special Blue Chew, which is called Drew Chew. Maybe that should be the title of the show. Reorder your Drew Chew. I need a refill of Drew Chew, damn it.
I didn't expect that. God damn it. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed your Christmas, and support our Patreon. It's just $5 a month, and you'll like what you hear. We haven't put on any new content yet, and that's on me. So we need to make that happen. I do a show with Jeff, which is called From Our Lips to Your Ears. I do a show with RJ, Attack of the Savage Nerds. We did record one a few weeks ago, but there was an issue, and I had to. I couldn't. We literally only did like 20 minutes, and I don't know if RJ will, I'm pretty sure RJ won't mind me saying this. So RJ actually took an edible before we recorded, and he got sick, and the edible started to, take form while we were recording, so we had to stop, and we only did 20 minutes, so I couldn't release that. So
you can take bullets, but you can't take an edible. Okay.
Yeah, soft.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a show with Ruben Prime called Culture Attack, and like I said, we haven't been doing anything new, but that's on me, so we'll try to make that happen. And support us, support our podcast, support everybody's podcast, and you know where to find me. I'm an easy man to find. But this Friday, I'll be doing my year-end awards, including Q&A, and it's with my partner in crime, Justin. And if you haven't already, send in your questions. You can put them on here on the Questions for Drew tab, and put as many as you like, and we will read them and answer them. So anyways, guys, Merry Christmas. Thank you for spending your Christmas with us. And from me and Jeff to you, have a Merry Christmas, be safe, and we will see you in the new year. Peace out.
Echo that and stay evil, my friends.